Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I will call the August 21st, 2024 Select Board meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. We accept the agenda as printed, no changes. I will turn it over to Town Manager for announcements.
Thank you. This meeting is being video and audio recorded, and I'm very pleased to introduce our new Director of Public Health and Human Services, Roque Miramontes. He is online. Hi, Roque. And he is currently working remotely. He will be on island in the next couple of weeks. He's most recently worked for the Centers for Disease Control. And Roque, if you just want to say hello.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction, Libby. I'm truly honored to step into the role of Public Health Director for the town of Nantucket. And I certainly want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the town leadership for their warm welcome and invaluable insights, which greatly influenced my decision to join this wonderful community. I also want to acknowledge the great work of my predecessor and current team that led public health during challenging times. I'm ready to get to work and look forward to arriving on the island, as Libby mentioned, late next week.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have announcements for applications received for the Conservation Commission vacancy. Appointments to that commission will be made on September 25th. I believe there are two applicants, RJ Turcott and Grant Sanders. There are no select board meetings for the next 2 weeks, Wednesday, August 28th and Wednesday, September 4th. Back to business on Wednesday, September 11th. Town offices will be closed on Monday, September 2nd in observance of Labor Day. And Eric is going to review with us some upcoming roadwork projects that are going to be taking place in the fall and winter.
Thank you. We are planning to have a fairly busy construction season over 24-25. The first starting back up is the third sewer force main project. As this is, I think, our third year now that we've been part of this project. And the focus of this year is really going to be on Pine Street. We still have to finish on Liberty, Winter, go across Main, and then Pine. And then it'll come out to Silver and just a little bit in Pleasant. But the rest of the road, and that's going to start on Monday, November 9th. And it's going to be pretty impactful. There's going to be no parking, especially along Pine Street. Thankfully, it won't have to be the whole street at one time, but I know there's a lot of people who live on Pine Street that don't necessarily have parking spaces off street. And hopefully people aren't going to be leaving their vehicles there for long-term on-street storage over the winter, but we'll be notifying them of that. Also, road restoration is going to start, which is going to be really great. We're looking at C Street, Step Lane, Center Street, Lily Street, Liberty Street, Atlantic Avenue, and Surfside Road. We're working with the school right now on an outreach for the students and the parents about how drop-offs and pickups are going to happen around the school entrances. That's not slated to start until October, but that's going to be pretty involved as well. And then we'll have other project updates as we get closer, including paving for the water main project west of the airport and the CMOM, which is another sewer project that was going on last winter, the finishing of that. So once we have better schedules on those, I'll let you know.
Thanks, Erica.
Thank you. And we have one more item that was a little bit too late to get onto the agenda. We have scheduled a workshop meeting with Department of Environmental Protection officials that with regard to PFAS, all about PFAS, many different issues to be discussed. That will be held on Tuesday, September 10th at 5 p.m. It will be an entirely virtual meeting. and additional information will be posted and made available very shortly, but we encourage people who have concerns or interest in this issue to join.
Okay, any select board announcements or comments? Matt?
I have just one quick one. And hopefully BPAC or the town will talk a little bit about signs and bike paths. I've been riding my bike a bit more because it's so crazy to try to drive, and it's working great. But one thing I did notice on Old South and Nantucket is there's some that are just really unclear, where there should be stops for the cars, there aren't, and then there's double. And I think with a little bit of change, we could make it a lot safer. And BPAC has made those recommendations on some, specifically on certain areas, and I would love to get the status of that coming up. So, thanks.
Okay, we'll put that on the list. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so I've agended Vineyard Wind as a follow-up on comments from prior select board meetings tonight. And so we will not be taking public comment about Vineyard Wind tonight. We're so behind on our agendas. But I did want to give the community an update that we did give GE and Vineyard Wind a full list of all of the questions that were asked at select board meetings. And they have responded today with written responses to the questions. They left a few of them because they were town questions, and those will be updated. Florencia was working on that today, and those answers are now up on that Q&A page on the Vineyard Wind Turbine Crisis page. So hopefully those questions have been answered. I wanted to thank Amy DeCibio for her work in scrubbing the videos and providing some of the Q&A stuff for us to utilize to form that list of questions, and to our former now communications intern Layla, who did a lot of work on that, and to Florencia and her entire team. In addition to, so if you have any questions that are not on there and you would like them on there, anything we missed, please email them to communications@nantucket-ma.gov, and we will continue to submit those to the appropriate authorities, and whether those are for Vineyard Wind GE, Bessie, the state about environmental impact. Any questions you have, please feel free to email them to Florencia's office, and we will continue to post them and update the answers as we get them. And I just want to say it's been an interesting journey getting the answers to those questions, and I'm glad we finally got them. In addition, I wanted to share some of the work that I and Florencia and Rick have been doing in terms of continued communications with federal and state authorities. I've continued to meet regularly with the team from the Massachusetts Energy and Environmental Agency, Mass EEA, on the environmental analysis project and how that's coming along. I've also had regular contact with Representative Song Kim, who was here on August 7th from Bessie, and I'm pleased to report that she has been very responsive to my requests for more timely communication from Bessie, and that is starting to happen in a more significant way, and we are being brought to the table as requested on a number of things that are going on at the federal level as well. So I'm pleased with that, but I would like folks to submit questions they have about the process by which Vineyard Wind will be incrementally given permission to take on more activities, and would appreciate the community submitting those questions as well, because I'll be submitting those to Bessie for answers, concrete answers to those community questions. So please contribute. So that's kind of it on that.
And I think a thank you to you and the Florencia and Rick. This has been a full-time job for Brooke especially, and I think it's I think she has put the the citizens, the island's concerns across very strongly, I believe. I hope that that will enable us as we roll forward with this to, sort of have some influence and, and make the right choices as we go forward. I think, but I think we wouldn't be where we are without people bugging me or her, and then me bugging her, or her bugging them, or however it's been going. It's been a lot. And I think, I want to thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. Okay, so if there's nothing else on that, I'm going to open the floor for public comments for items not on the agenda. And just to be clear, Vineyard Wind is off, is an agenda item. So Ms. Dye.
Thank you. Penny Dye. I have a couple of questions. As most of us know, there are over 30 boards, commissions, and committees that are now meeting by hybrid. And some of them are actually required to do so. One of the advantages of that for the public is that these meetings are recorded and then placed online so people can follow later if they're not able to be there during the meeting. With all the recent changes at the land bank, this might be a good time to ask them to do that as well, to enable more community participation. Secondly, I think their minutes should be online because they're really hard to find. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. Anybody else for public comment in the room? And then I have a couple people.
I understand you don't want to take comments tonight, and it's
So
totally
if it's regarding Vineyard Wind, I won't.
We have a document that we just want to share with you.
You're welcome to submit
that we
it.
prepared that we would
Okay.
like to
Yeah.
submit.
Thank you. And then online, Bill Greeter. Veronica.
Sorry.
Yep, thanks, Erica.
Go ahead, Bill.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for taking my call. I recently attended yet another presentation on island-wide coastal resiliency and the different phased course of action. As I later reviewed the plans and drilled down to specifics, I noted an omission of detail in the Nantucket section, mainly the relocation of Ames Ave and Nantucket Road intersection. The coastal resiliency plan does include planning for implementation of Baxter Road, including acquisition of easements, management agreements, road alignments, and final design. The Nantucket section does include a section on protecting the Ames Bridge and maintaining that, because the loss of that bridge is the only access to Smith Point. There's also a section of Nantucket Road about raising near 188 Nantucket Road and the culvert conversions. What is missing throughout all of this is the relocation of the Nantucket Road and Ames Ave intersection. The 2001 April 10th town meeting passed an Article 59. It was dedication of land for harbor access in Nantucket Road, sponsored by Tom Erickson. Then in 2017, we, the area association, submitted a letter to the select board noting the fact that it was only 47 feet between the shore and that intersection. And the preservation of this intersection is essential as it provides access to the Jackson Point boat launch ramp, Smith Point in general, about 48 to 50 houses and homes and cottages, as well as hundreds and hundreds of feet of town road. Dave Franzuto started efforts to protect that back in 2017, but nothing's really progressed from there. And talking with the new town real estate specialists, the current town-owned parcels that were taken back in 2001 need to be deregistered to allow for any road layout adjustment. This is a lengthy process and should, quite frankly, have started after the 2001 article. Given the rate of erosion we've seen this past year, where erosion is coming from the south instead of the west towards that intersection, this issue needs to be addressed and accelerated. I'm requesting this matter be reviewed by the select board staff and placed on a upcoming select board agenda so there can be public information exchange and dialogue going forward. Thank you. I know you can't respond now, but thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Campbell Sutton?
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for seeing my hand and giving me an opportunity to speak. I wanted to sort of follow up on what Matt said. I think everyone's done such a stunning job on this Vineyard Wind, and I know it's taken gobs of work to do. So thank you very much for your attention to it. And hopefully as we move forward, more coastal communities can, gather their resources.
Campbell?
Yes?
Campbell, technically,
am I
I've
talking
stated
about
that I'm not
Vineyard
taking
Wind?
public comment on Vineyard Wind, so.
Oh, sorry.
despite
Okay, I'll stop that.
Appreciation, note of appreciation.
Yeah, the appreciation is where I wanted to stop. The other one was that I had earlier brought in a agendas and minutes concern about being able to use that webpage. You guys had done a follow-up on that, and I wanted to thank you for the follow-up, and the agenda and minutes page is now working, which is great. I also wanted to, I know everyone's busy, so I'm not trying to heap things on, but I wanted to follow up on something I had asked about maybe a month ago or so, which was the housing court and where we stand with that. I'm not one way or the other. I'm just wondering, have we heard from anyone what kind of progress is or lack thereof is being made? Not because people haven't been, busy. The other one was, oh, sugar, I'm going to forget. No. So another thing I've been interested in, having gone to several meetings about different things in the last couple of weeks, I'm wondering if there's a way to get an update on where we stand with progress in the landfill work group there. I think it would be great to know. I think the contract comes up in December, so I'm just sort of been wondering where we stand with that. And my third and final thing, other than thank you everyone for all the work you do, is I'm wondering if there's a way to create a public-private partnership that might be able to address, I know at the state level, they've said we can't do the real estate tax, but is it possible to have like a voluntary, when a house is sold or transferred, is it possible to create a voluntary system in which maybe the CPC or something could set up an account in which some monies could go towards affordable housing, that kind of thing. So anyway, thank you again for everything.
Okay, thanks, Campbell. Okay, we do not have, anybody else? Public comment? No, seeing none. We don't have any new business. Next up, why don't we take minutes, payroll warrants, and treasury warrants as a single motion, if the board pleases?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. That's unanimous. And then pending contracts. Any questions? There is one change that Erica uploaded just before the meeting, just a language change, and there was an error in the duration of the contract for the deputy police chief. So any questions from the board on pending contracts?
Madam Chair, I have two I need to recuse from.
Okay. So do you want to make a motion without them, or do you want to just?
The Nantucket Racket Sports Association and the Nantucket Food, Fuel, and Rental Assistance or Interfaith Council contracts. There's their CPC, but I'm just being due diligence.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve pending contracts with Tom's recusal on those two items?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that's 4-0, unanimous. Okay. Next up, Surfside Area Transportation Improvements Project Update. Drew? you're up.
Give me 1 second.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we get into the presentation, I just want to give a quick update on our approach to the project. We did a brief update to the board back in April, and I know there's been a number of presentations for the board over the years. In short, the vision for this area from Surfside Road to the airport to Old South Road originally was kind of 4 phases. That was the boulevard, which has obviously already been constructed, and the other 3 phases were Lovers Lane, Orkawa, and Monahans. For a number of reasons, we are moving forward with one project incorporating phases 2, 3, and 4, which are Lovers Lane, Orkawa, and Monahans Road. One of which is that we would hope to see some economy of scale savings by bidding the project as one. Also creates some consistency and more uniformity between the construction of 3 different roads. But probably more than anything, I wanted to highlight that, if we were to design, bid, and construct Lovers, and then do the same for Orkawa, and then do the same for Monahans, we're looking at maybe 4 or 5 or more years of construction in the area. Obviously, as everyone knows, water mains were extended through this area over the last year, which was a very successful project. And our intent is to move forward with this as one big project to finish out, improving the area from a roadway and drainage standpoint. So online are a number of the members of the design team. And at this point, I'll pass it over to Zach Wasmuth from GPI, who is the project manager from the engineering firm, to walk us through the design elements of the project.
Thank you, Drew. I think I have my screen shared up. I just wanted to confirm with the presentation.
Yes.
Okay, good. Excellent. Yeah, so as Drew mentioned, thank you for the introduction, Drew. I'm Zach Wasmuth with GPI. I'm joined here by Nick DeSalvo from GPI, as well as Emily Schick from CDM Smith, who are working with us on this project. So I'll just run through a set of slides. This is very similar to the presentation that we gave last week to the abutters, just giving a brief update on the project. So a quick overview of the project limits. We're redesigning the roadways of Lovers Lane from Boulevard to Old South Road, Orkawa Avenue from Lovers Lane to Monahans Road, and Monahans Road from Orkawa Avenue to the airport driveway, just shy of Miller Lane here. This consists of approximately 2.3 miles of roadway reconstruction and includes a side path for the entire limits of the project. A short portion of the side path on Lovers, you can see here between Rugged Road and Old South Road, will actually be within the state forest where a gravel trail currently exists. The new design will include a paved trail. The design also includes some improvements to the parking lot for the state forest as well. The improvements will also include the installation of a closed drainage system that will help remedy some of the existing ponding and flooding issues that are currently experienced along Lovers, Dave Kim Road, Orkawa, and Monahans. That storm drain system includes multiple outfall locations with underground infiltration chambers designed to improve water quality, minimize maintenance, and meet regulatory requirements, while also being aesthetically pleasing because they won't be visible. So now I'll just jump to the next slide and look at some of the typical sections for the design. So starting with Lovers, and this would be looking in the northerly direction, heading from Boulevard to Old South Road. In general, the roadway consists of 2 10-foot travel lanes with a Cape Cod berm, an asphalt berm on either side, and a shared use path adjacent. This top section shows where the shared use path is immediately adjacent to the roadway, so that would be from Boulevard up toward Rugged Road. And then the bottom section here, similar section for the roadway, but this is the section between Rugged and Old South Road, where the shared use path, 10-foot wide for biking and walking, would be within the state forest. The design is in the it does exist within the right of way, except for the portion of the state forest. And we're currently in the process of obtaining temporary easements for construction and everything where need to tie into adjacent properties for grading and driveways and that type of thing. Jumping to the next slide we have here, this is the typical section for Orkawa and Monahanset Road. As you can see, similar design. This would be heading in the easterly direction. So again, you see your two 10-foot travel lanes. The roadway with the Cape Cod berm on either side. You can see it's crowned and everything. So designed to, convey water into the drainage system. A grass buffer in between, and then that shared use path adjacent to the roadway. This would be on the south side or the airport side of the street. As with Lover's Land, you can see here with the right-of-way lines marked, the design's in the right-of-way, but there are some temporary easements that the town's in the process of acquiring for tying in. You can see the existing, this is just one example section that varies throughout the corridor, but the existing grade is this dashed sort of orange line and this green line here. So that's sort of the type of thing that we'd be doing to tie in, but the section itself is within the right-of-way. Just jumping into some of the key design elements, one thing that we wanted to hit on, of course, is traffic calming. We understand that speeding and was raised at our recent abutters meeting as a concern out here, especially when we're installing new paved surfaces. So just to talk about the elements that we're putting into place that we have to mitigate any potential speeding issues. Right off the bat, as I mentioned, the roadways will be, narrow, so they're 20-foot width with 10-foot lanes, and that's wide enough to support the traffic, including trucks, but not so wide that it encourages folks to travel at a high rate of speed. Additionally, we have some raised intersections throughout the project, spaced throughout the project to cut down on speeding. These locations include Lovers at Orkawa at Skyline, and Monahanset at Webster Road. So these would be a raised intersection, kind of like the image that you see in the middle of the page. Obviously, that's a more urban application, but it would be where the roadway would come up at the intersection. So you get that raise, kind of sets the tone, kind of slows vehicles down entering those areas. In addition to that, we're proposing a small median island. Again, this isn't exactly what it would look like, but an example of one on Lovers, just south of Nancy Ann Lane. The goal of these is to have a spacing that we feel will keep vehicles at a reasonable speed. And it also provides a 24/7 enforcement of those lower speeds. The spacing, considers things like the house moving route along Monahanset and Orkawa, as well as emergency vehicle access, police, fire, etc., and snow and ice removal. Just to talk about speeds, recent speed study was done on Monahanset, just east of Webster here back in June, and we found that the average speed was around 28 miles an hour, and 85th percentile speed was around 33 miles an hour. So we're really looking at this design to encourage speeds to slow vehicles down when it's ultimately implemented to be closer in that 25 to 30 mile an hour range. Jumping into stormwater management, as I previously mentioned, stormwater will be managed by a closed drainage system to help to mitigate some of the existing ponding and flooding issues that exist throughout the project limits. As I mentioned before, the roadway includes that asphalt berm on either side, as well as the crown to contain water within the roadway and to direct the flow to the catch basins. There'll be catch basins throughout the project, all along these roadways, all roadways in the project. Those catch basins will distribute water into a subsurface infiltration system throughout the project, and those look something like these photos on the left. These are, in construction, so these would be buried underneath the roadway or the shared use path when completed. All of these would be within the right of way. You can see the locations circled here along Orkawa and Monahanset. The one exception would be this location just near Rugged Road at Lovers, just east, where the town's in the process of acquiring an easement for that. This one is a much larger infiltration system that's designed to take in sort of the bulk of the stormwater on on Lover's Lane, so that's why you see less of them and more over here. These are smaller systems. And again, there'd be catch basins throughout, pipes throughout that convey the water to these systems all along the project area. They're designed to filter out sand and grit. These are deep sump catch basins. They have water quality units, all of that in there to filter out debris and sand and pine needles and all of that type of stuff, and have access points for maintenance. And again, the systems won't be visible. They'll be underground. This will be what's underground there, other than you'll see obviously some manhole covers and such here and there. Just talking briefly on soil management, and I know PFAS came up earlier in the meeting, so we just want to make sure that we addressed what our plan is for that. As you can see on this map to the right, this is Monahans Road in our project limits. Right here, and this blue section is the project area that's in the Nantucket Airport MCP disposal site boundary. So as you know, there's known PFAS containing soil on Monahans Road adjacent to the airport in this area. We've been working very closely with the airport as far as the handling and removal for any handling and removal of the soil that falls within the disposal site boundary. Any soil that we encounter will be handled and managed in accordance with the Mass DEP requirements, and we're making sure that we have proper specifications and procedures included in our contract documents to make sure that those soils are handled appropriately. Just to provide some updates on where we are with the project overall, as far as the right-of-way that I mentioned, there was a special town meeting back in 2023 which authorized the easements to be taken. So there's some temporary and there's some permanent easement acquisitions going on, and those are in progress. Again, those are the types of things where it's like the tie-in, there's some utility relocations, and of course there's that stormwater infiltration system. So there's a few easements that are required for this project, both permanent and temporary. As far as permitting, we have 4 permits for this project, which have all been acquired with the Mass Historic Commission, Mass Endangered Species Act, DCR, and MEPA. So all of those are in hand, so we're good to go on that front, which is great. As far as the design plans are at the 100% level and have been submitted to the town for review as of August 1st. So that review's in progress, making sure that all comments have been addressed, making sure we have everything in there, T's crossed, I's dotted, that type of thing, making sure we have all the specifications and stuff in order. So we're working through that process right now. As far as utility relocation is considered, there are a number of utility relocations that need to be coordinated with this project. In concert with, the infiltration systems that are being installed subsurface and where the bike trail is, so some stuff needs to be moved around. So that coordination with utility companies is ongoing, National Grid, etc. Working with them to work out those details so that can happen in conjunction with this project. As far as the construction phasing, right now it's to be determined. We're just, as I said, we have the final plans that are under review. We're working on buttoning those up to issue the final construction documents. So once we have the actual contractor on board and have bid the project, we'll have more of an idea of where we're going to start, when we're going to start, how long we're going to be there, and what that looks like. Also, just wanted to mention another coordination thing is there may be some sewer work that we need to coordinate with off of Monahans, so that may be coming up in an upcoming special town meeting. So all those things are happening or will be happening. And just wanted to pause here to recap on, we gave this very similar presentation, basically the same presentation last week to the abutters, and just wanted to highlight some of the main topics that were raised by meeting attendees. And those were as listed below: speeding, drainage at Dave Kim Lane, stormwater management project-wide, and safety line of sight concerns. As far as traffic, speeding, as I mentioned before, we are installing those traffic calming elements that we believe will have a balanced approach with managing the speeds, but also, taking into account snow and ice removal, noise, the rural aesthetic of the street, keeping in mind that signage and striping is an important component that needs to be done in conjunction with these devices, and just general emergency response and the house moving route. The drainage at Dave Kim, we understand obviously that location, sometimes known as the lake or other affectionate terms for the water that's holding there. Again, we're installing a drainage system out there that, I think there's at least 4 catch basins just at that location alone to take on the water. These will be deep sump catch basins that can be clean, that separate out the debris, and then that enters the system that's designed for 100-year storm flood conditions. And again, that just kind of relays right into the stormwater design. Again, these systems are designed to convey any water in the roadway through into these infiltration systems, filter out any sand, pine needles, and everything are accessible for maintenance and designed to handle those large storm events. And another issue that was brought up was, of course, safety and line of sight concerns. So it wasn't specifically mentioned in the presentation, but we are cutting back a lot of the vegetation adjacent to the roadway, especially at some key intersections like at Skyline, to make sure that we have adequate sight distances. So when you're at one of those intersections, you can see a vehicle entering the vehicle, you can see them, as well as, folks entering from their driveways and everything. So that's certainly something that we're taking into account as well in the design. Breezing through, I just got a couple more slides. So tentative timeline, obviously subject to change. As I mentioned, the design was submitted back on August 1st, under review, working on buttoning it up to get final bid documents, aiming to advertise the project this fall for contractor bidding to get a contractor on board to potentially start construction sometime in the winter, spring of next year, 2025. And again, that's all to be determined, exactly the phasing and everything. We'll definitely be reaching back out, I'm sure, once we actually have a contractor on board and have a sense of, again, where they're going to go, when they're going to be there and everything to kind of lay that out. But it's probably going to be a construction, period that would last through 2027. Last, I just wanted to show you a quick rendering. You're looking at a recent photo on Orkawa Avenue heading east. And on the left, obviously, is what it looks like today, or it did a couple weeks ago when Drew took the picture. And on the right is something like what it would look like in the proposed condition. So you can see you have your newly paved roadway there with the striping. The berm would be on the either side here, your grass buffer, and then your shared use path adjacent. And again, that would be on the south side of the street. And then that about wraps it up. This is obviously a link to the project website, which has been updated, which you can scan on your QR code or click the link. And yeah, I'll pause there if there's any questions or comments.
Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Just one quick comment. This just shows how long it takes to do these things. This is at what, 2027? People think, oh, we need this. This will be great. And they don't, people have to realize, town has been working on this fairly diligently and we're still 3 years away. So anyway.
Okay. You want to, Spruce?
Burton Balkind, thank you, Madam Chair. Is it okay to ask a couple of quick questions?
Sure.
On the catch basins, is there going to be any monitoring done on the stuff that's being separated and the water that's going back into our sole source aquifer? My first question.
Okay. Zach, do you want to take that?
I was going to ask if Drew wanted to take it, but I can attempt to. Yeah.
Okay.
And of course, this may be a better
Ball
question.
tossed.
Of
Go
course,
ahead,
this
Drew.
may be a better question for the sewer department. I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. To build on what Zach mentioned earlier about the design, he mentioned that deep sump catch basins to separate debris. Additionally, then it goes to a deep sump manhole in the road. There's a series of manholes, then a water quality unit to further separate any solids from the stormwater before going into an isolator row in the infiltration system before being put back into the groundwater. So there's a lot of stages to the stormwater from hitting the road surface or the shoulder to, before it goes back into the groundwater. As far as monitoring, I'm not sure what the sewer department would do or could do.
Perhaps a different way to phrase the question would be, there will be a maintenance plan for those catch basins?
Yeah, of course. And we worked really closely with the sewer department, stormwater manager, to get their input on the design and make sure that it's something that can be sustainably maintained long term. I mean, honestly, we've kind of oversized some of these structures so that they're not going to need to be cleaned more often than anything else out here, and probably more, or less frequently going forward over the coming years and decades, so that maintenance doesn't become a problem for the stormwater system.
Okay, terrific. Spruce, do you have another question?
I did, Madam Chair, but you stole my thunder about the maintenance plan. The only thing I'd like to comment is on the maintenance plan is I notice a lot of catch basins are installed, and I don't know if there's a maintenance schedule for all of them, or is this one just having a special maintenance schedule? But I think that's something that's very important, because if to put them in and forget about them, it doesn't work in the long run. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
I actually believe there was a contract tonight on the pending contracts agenda for catch basin cleaning. So
Yes, okay, there you go.
they're certainly working on it.
Okay,
And-
thanks, Drew.
And we heard in a different meeting that they're about halfway, 3/4 of the way through checking all the different ones. There's still a lot to catch up with. But there, I think his point is a good one, that maintenance is needed. We put in a swamp, sort of the swamp down at Great Harbor. But those things have to, it's supposed to treat, but you have to maintain it. You have to take the stuff out and take everything out, otherwise it really isn't doing the job. So I think that we are working to improve the town on that, for sure.
Definitely. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, we will move along to citizen departmental committee requests and reports. The next agenda item is applicant introduction and appointments. And I'm going to have Erica summarize for us.
Okay, so what we're going to do is have any applicants that are present. I'll call the names of who's on the list, and if you are present, you can come to the mic and speak, or you can raise your hand if you're online, and I will let you speak on your application. Once everyone has had a chance to speak on their applications, we will do either a vote by acclamation on any of the committees that, where there's no, what am I trying to say?
Fewer applicants,
Where there are, yes.
not more applicants than seats
Yes.
available.
And then there are two committees where we're going to do a paper ballot vote, and that's going to be for the Capital Program Committee and the Nantucket Historical Commission. So I'm going to start with the Capital Program Committee.
Hang on, can I make a suggestion? Why don't we vote those? I'm not sure we have to talk to everybody on those. They've had a chance before. Can we vote that and then have the people that are here for the others speak? Is that, because we have a fairly long agenda.
Sure, so let me read the names of the committees and the applicants that you will potentially vote by acclamation. Council on Aging would be Arlene O'Reilly. Cultural Council, Jack Bulger. Real Estate Assessment Committee, Thomas Barretta. And then Scholarship Committee, Jacqueline McGrady and Ann Brodus.
Okay, the pleasure of the board?
Move approval of those?
Second.
By acclamation. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous, 5-0. Okay, and now we'll move on to Capital Program Committee. Erica, do you
Yep,
want to?
I'm just making a note. Sorry, so Capital Program Committee, there is one seat available, 2 applicants. Peter Kaiser, who did let me know tonight that he is unable to attend. He's watching his child. And then Joe Plandowski, who I believe is in the back.
My name's Joe Plandowski, and I'm applying for the Capital Program Committee. My application, I think, has quite a bit of information in it, but I'll add a few points or stress a few points. One is I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in business administration from the State University of New York. I was also licensed as a professional engineer in New York State. I've had a fair number of companies that I've managed over the years. 20 years ago, however, I co-founded and still co-own today two small healthcare companies. I've spent a lot of time in volunteering. For example, I'm on the Nantucket Conservation Commission. I completed the Commonwealth's 8-course program to get certified in the fundamentals for conservation commissioners. In addition to that, I'm also on Nantucket's Cannabis Advisory Committee. Some of the prior activities is that I was for 4 years an AYSO certified soccer coach. I spent 10 years as an adult leader with the Boy Scouts of America, and I spent 15 years as a U.S. swimming official. I'm a full-time year-round resident of Nantucket, and I request your support for the open position. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Any questions from the board? Thank you very much for applying. So we'll hand in our votes. Just a second here.
And you don't have to fold them if you don't want. It was unanimous, all 5 for Peter Kaiser.
Thanks again, Joe, for applying. Congratulations to Peter. Next up is Nantucket Historical Commission.
So you have 3 applicants for 2 seats: Linda Williams, Diane Coombs, and Sarah Noel McLean. And I'm not sure if anyone is here.
Linda's here.
Linda's here, and you must be Sarah. All right, why don't we,
Sarah?
Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, Sarah McLean.
Pull the mic down a little. There we go.
Hello, Sarah McLean. Thank you for letting me apply, I guess. So I've had a long history in historic preservation, both personally and professionally. I sat on the Stowe Preservation Commission, which is more similar to your HDC, for 10 years. I was board chair for 6 of those years, from 2010 to 2020. Now, currently, I've spent the last 5 years restoring a house in town that I've gone through the historic tax credit, so I know the application process very well. Have worked with all of the different boards here when it comes to preservation, MPT, HDC. I love old houses and have spent a lot of time dealing with them. I don't have any financial conflicts of interest in terms of being on any other boards or being employed by anyone that would have any sort of impact on my decision-making. And I have been a full-time resident of Nantucket on and off since 1994, but coming here since 1984, and have owned property at various points in that time, and more recently became a year-round resident officially back in January of this year, and so have decided to retire to Nantucket. I don't know, other than that, I love old houses and love what our island can offer and want to make sure that we can continue to be good stewards of what we have here.
Thank you. Any questions? Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Linda?
Good evening. I don't think I have to tell you who I am at this point. I'm still involved. Linda Williams, past chairman of the HDC. I've been dealing with the historic nature of Nantucket since I was born. I've been here 50 years year-round. Forget you ever heard that. And I'm still involved with the Historic District Commission. I'm still involved with maintaining Nantucket's historic character. Mostly I've been focused on the architectural history of Nantucket because that's what I do. I work very closely with Holly on a lot of histories on structures. I consult with her on almost a daily basis. And Nantucket is more than its architectural history. It is its setting, its roads, its sidewalks. There's an awful lot more to it. There's a difference between the jurisdiction of the HDC, which is architectural review, and a difference between the Historical Commission, which has a much broader, less architecturally focused history. And I'd like to continue to give back. I've been involved with this for 40 some odd years, so I'd like to continue to use my energy on protecting the other part that the HDC does not have jurisdiction over. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Any questions? Okay.
And Diane
Diane's
Coombs is online, so she doesn't have her hand raised, but I'm going to ask her to go ahead and speak. And Diane, you're going to have to unmute. Diane?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now. Go ahead.
Okay, I will give you my little speech. It's a good evening, members of the Board of Selectmen. I am Diane Coombs, and I am applying for appointment to the Nantucket Historical Commission. I believe no other applicant has great experience with Nantucket's history and architecture as I do. I have been a resident for 55 years. I have a long history of service to Nantucket. I've served as a member of the Board of Selectmen. I served as an elected member of the Historic District Commission for nearly 20 years, retiring just this year. In 1988, I joined the post office, and I worked there for 28 years as a letter carrier, 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, which has given me a great great knowledge of the streets, landscape, and development that you find in Nantucket that goes on, changes without you really realizing it, and creates what the landscape is now like. I also attended the BAC Architectural School in Boston for 16 years and worked as an associate for 15 years with the architect Harold Kellogg. I decided not to run for re-election for the HDC so I could spend more time doing other things that I have been learning about over a period of time, and specifically on this commission. Nantucket's architecture and history is one of my great passions, and of all the boards in Nantucket, the Historic Commission is where I want to contribute my energy and experience. Importantly, in all that time, I have served the community in all facts, plus guiding Nantucket's architecture. I've never made 1 cent on my service over the years. I have never earned any money from any real estate or development business. I have never represented owners in front of any town boards, and I have no conflict of interest. I have not worked in any professionally employed by anybody. It has always been voluntary. The Historic Commission relies on local knowledge and experience, and I believe I have had this in pretty good quantities. I have owned my house, which is built in 1835, in 1972. I came here first in 1965. I helped manage a house called Niconoose out in Sconset. I also, as anybody who listens to the HTC, have heard me repeat repeatedly that the streetscape is very important to how you pull an area together. You can't have one type of stuff and then put up a 40-foot building and 100 feet long or 300 feet long in the middle of a smaller area. I find this hard to do.
Diane?
Yeah.
Can you make your final points? So
Sure. I thought I was keeping under 3 minutes. Anyway, I have studied many times the local historic district design review that's put out by Massachusetts, which says what we're supposed to do as one of these commissions. And it isn't just building houses, it's how to make it all work. And I would really, really like to do that.
thank you. Thank you, Diane.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
So you're going to be voting for 2. Okay, that was a unanimous vote as well. 5 votes go to Diane Coombs and 5 votes go to Sarah McLean.
Thank you for everybody. Thanks, Linda, for applying. Okay.
So we still do have a couple of extra
That's not how I
seats.
voted.
Did I get it wrong?
Just for the record.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry. So sorry, so sorry. It's still the same result. Don voted for Sarah and Linda. So it's 1 vote Linda, 4 votes Diane, and 5 votes Sarah. Pardon me. Read it wrong.
Okay, great. Glad we cleared that up. So you were saying, Erica, that we still have open
Yeah,
positions?
so what we'll do is just, I'll post the couple of seats that we have left on the website, and I think I actually already have 1 application that's sitting on my desk. So we'll just fill those as they come in.
Right, and there's still an additional seat on the scholarship committee, and yeah, so even though we appointed tonight, there's 1 more seat open. Okay, terrific. Thanks so much, Erica, for shepherding that process for us. Okay, next up is a strategic plan update from the housing focus area, and our housing director, Christy Varantella, with a debt of a gratitude for being postponed twice, and thanks for being here tonight.
Of course.
Over to you.
Thank you. Erica's just going to start the presentation. I'm Christy Ferrantella, Municipal Housing Director. I'll be giving 2 updates tonight. One is an update on the strategic plan on the housing goals, and the second update is a quarterly report on behalf of the Affordable Housing Trust. So some items I might not go in as much detail because it's in the next slide, but at any point, feel free to interrupt me and ask questions. And if you're watching this later on, I encourage you to watch both updates. So this is going to review all the housing goals. Our select board liaison for the strategic plan is Dawn, and our stakeholders are the Employee Housing Focus Group and the Affordable Housing Trust. I'll start off by reading the aspirational statement. Nantucket is a diverse community with a broad spectrum of economic circumstances and has housing stock that meets the range of needs. Year-round housing is achievable for everyone who works on the island, and the various tiers of affordable housing make year-round living comfortable, stable, and inclusive. Our seasonal workforce is able to find safe and secure housing. Homes on Nantucket are well constructed and integrated into the character of the island. Next slide, please. The first two goals of the strategic plan around housing focus on municipal housing. The first one is to prioritize the housing needs for town and school employees, and the second is to evaluate the potential for coordinated housing effort for public employees across municipal operations. Next slide, please. So to dive into this, the way that we've begun tackling this is forming an internal employee housing focus group. This group consists of Rick Sears, Leslie Snell, both Chief Casper and Chief Cranston, Drew from the DPW, Beth Hallett at the school, Amanda Perry from HR, and myself. We started meeting to develop a strategy around unit type and what to produce for employee housing, and realized we really need to have more details on the need. So we worked over the winter to produce an employee housing needs survey, which was launched in the spring, and we're starting to go through those results. I'm sure I'll be back in front of you shortly with an update as we get more information from that survey. We've also hired a rental property manager to facilitate the municipal housing placement. Rachel Field manages our roughly 30 units of municipal housing and is coordinating the efforts to place and find housing for all municipal employees, including school employees. In addition to this, we've hired a builder to construct the seasonal dorm that's going to take place over on Waite Drive. The estimated completion date is spring of 2025, and the construction of this seasonal dorm will address some of our seasonal housing challenges, which will free up some of the other town-owned properties that can be repurposed for year-round municipal employee use. The dorms will also have 2 year-round apartments, which will be available for employees. We've also, in all of our work with our partners on the island, we're able to secure 6 units of municipal employee housing at the Wiggles Way development across the street, and it was a great product of working with Housing Nantucket. Some of the challenges that we've faced, like all businesses on the island trying to work with employee housing, it comes to funding. While we didn't receive funding this past annual town meeting, we are re-strategizing and continuing to evaluate ways to develop municipal housing. One recent development is the passage of the Affordable Homes Act, which I'll be going into a little bit more detail later. But this gave Nantucket a seasonal communities designation, which does allow us to use state and federal funds for municipal housing. And we'll continue to work with the state's Economic Office of Housing and Livable Communities to ask for a special municipal local preference. It's something that Tucker began working on in this role, and we've continued to ask when we do affordable housing lotteries for SHI-listed developments, we would like to have a special preference for municipal employees. And while they haven't approved it yet, we are hopeful that with the new seasonal communities designation, there might be more of an appetite at the state for this. Next slide. So moving forward, we'll continue to work on reviewing the results of the employee survey and developing a detailed process for how we're going to tackle the needs of the employee housing. We'll also be going to the Capital Programs Committee for a request of $14 million to develop housing on Waite Drive and Tacoma Drive. And here on the slide, you just see a drawing of potential housing. Next slide. Goal number 3 is to explore incentives to encourage year-round rentals. Next slide. Thank you. So the Affordable Housing Trust has been reviewing a variety of tools that may encourage year-round rentals. We use the phrase, the 3 Cs, convert, conserve, and construct. We want to make sure that there's opportunities to convert underutilized or short-term rentals into year-round rentals, while also conserving existing year-round rentals to maintain their year-round occupancy. And the third option would be constructing additional units. One of the first programs that I was before you a couple weeks ago about was the Lease to Locals program. This was launched under the umbrella of Act Now community initiatives and will be taken over by Housing Nantucket next month. They came before the Affordable Housing Trust and received a $450,000 grant to expand this program. And this is really meant to incentivize people who have underutilized houses that are not occupied year-round to open their homes for year-round rentals. The second program that we're looking at is a new program put out from the state called the Good Landlord Tax Exemption. And what this would do would allow people who are either already renting year-round or creating new year-round rentals an exemption. This is something that Provincetown released. They locally did it, and then the state picked it up and put a local opt-in for all municipalities. So it can't go into effect until July 1st of 2025. So I've been working with Rob Ranney and Brian Turbit on how this program could be launched, and it'll have to go before a town meeting in the spring. Lastly, the trust has been continuing to work on developing RFPs to develop the vacant land. It's something that's in the final stages of being released, and I will be going into a little bit more detail when I talk about the trust update. Thank you. So the next steps, the Lease to Locals program is going to be launching on September 6th for existing homeowners and potential new homeowners. We'll continue to review the Good Landlord Tax Exemption, and we're getting very close to releasing those RFPs. Okay. Goal number 4 is to achieve and maintain safe harbor status under Chapter 40B. If you want to go to the next slide, I just have a little update on what safe harbor is and Chapter 40B. So under the state's 40B law, we set a 10% of our year-round housing stock goal to be affordable at 80% of area median income or less. This has changed every 10 years with the decennial census. And in 2020, our number did increase from 490 units to 618 units. So right now, our current list as of January of 2023 had 332 units, or just about 5%. We were meeting about halfway to the goal. In order to maintain safe harbor, which could allow the ZBA to reject a request for a 40B comprehensive permit, we need to either add 0.5% or 1% of our housing stock each year, which equates to 31 units or 62 units to maintain safe harbor for 1 or 2 years. Our current safe harbor expires at the end of this year. We are one of the only municipalities who has maintained this status since 2019 continuously, and has been a huge achievement of the Housing Department and the Affordable Housing Trust. So we have 2 plans to stay in safe harbor. The first is the development of Tacoma Green, which is a 64-unit rental development. This has been in the works since 2017, and they're planning on pulling their building permits. The pulling of the building permits will trigger their ability to allow us to apply for safe harbor, and so we're working to try to get that done before December 11th. If there's any other obstacles that come our way, we have an option B, which is Richmond's Gooseberry Place, which is, we're going to use a combination of projects. So they have 55 units of rentals, plus we'll put 4 units from Habitat's homeownership project on Waite Drive, and 3 units of Richmond Sandpiper Place, all in one application. So we're working diligently on keeping us in safe harbor for an additional 2 years. The next slide just visually shows the progress of being able to add units to the SHI list once we had funding from town meeting approved. And so this funding has really been able to help us put together a strategic plan and execute these plans to keep us in safe harbor. The next slide shows what's contributed to our current SHI list. And so these are the units that make up the current 5%. Next slide. This last slide on the SHI list just shows our current and forecasted projects for inclusion on the SHI list. So by the end of this year, with the projects in place, we should be hitting 7.5% towards our 10% goal. We've laid out projects such as the development of Orange Street, Vesper Lane, and Bartlett Road. And by 2027, we should hit that 10% number. As I always stress with Matt, this is not, it's not the end in sight. We're going to keep going. But that will at least maintain safe harbor until the next, we'll be able to prevent any unwanted 40Bs until the next decennial census, and we have new data presented to us. So in terms of action steps, we'll continue to work on the finalizing of the RFPs. This is going to be for 7 Amelia, 135, 137 Orange Street, 16 Vesper Lane, and 12 and 12R Bartlett Road. The staff has been working diligently over the past several months to issue these as a bundled RFP in order to incentivize developers to bid, given that it would be about 62 units in total. We're also exploring other ways to convert existing units into housing and working on an RFP with the finance department as that as well. The last goal, goal number 5, is to promote affordable and attainable home ownership opportunities for the year-round community. And this is something that the Affordable Housing Trust has really been focused on. We've gone and secured vacant land and really used those as rental property developments because those help us stay in safe harbor. We've really focused this past year on trying to look at ways that we can promote home ownership. So the trust, if you've watched any of the meetings twice a month, we talk about the year-round deed restriction pilot program at every single meeting, and we are closing in on finalizing the guidelines for that program. So the select board approved $2 million towards this pilot program, and we're hoping that this fall it will be released. We also issued an RFP for 3 lots on Waite Drive that Habitat for Humanity is now developing into home ownership units, and they just announced 4 of their winners this week. We've provided funding to both Richmond Properties and Habitat for Humanities to either accelerate or help them construct homes for home ownership at 2 of their developments. So the next steps is continue to work on all of these strategies, as well as developing an RFP for developing 8 White Street. And this is a property that the trust owns and could be another home ownership opportunity. We'll also continue to advocate for a real estate transfer fee to provide a stable funding source for attainable housing. So to wrap up the housing goals in relation to the strategic plan, we're working on a lot of projects. There's a lot going on in my office. We'll continue to provide opportunities for year-round home ownership and rental opportunities for the community, in addition to working on addressing municipal housing challenges. We're also working on updating our website right now. We've done a lot of work with Florencia over the last couple of weeks. So I encourage you to take a look at it, and we'll be providing information for easy access to our programs, education about affordable housing, and opportunities that will be in the community.
Any questions on this piece? No more? Perfect. So the next update to you tonight is the quarterly report from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and this covers April to June. I'm just going to repeat again, if you've tuned in now, go back and watch the housing update for the strategic plan, because there's a lot of cross information. So a few highlights from the quarter are listed above. Closing cost assistance continues to be a really strong program put out through the trust, and this assists families with the closing cost for deed-restricted programs. We have awarded 4 more families over this past quarter, and we've gotten 103 families to date have been awarded assistance to this program. I'll be going through the next few things, so we can go to the next slide. So an update on the Affordable Homes Act. This is something that we've been really watching closely. I know we've had a lot of updates to the select board. We've been up at the state. We were really excited that this bond bill was introduced by the Governor Healy and originally included a real estate transfer fee and a seasonal communities designation. While the final bill did remove the transfer fee, it did include the seasonal communities designation, and that's going to provide new tools for the municipality.
Governor Healy signed the $5.16 billion act into law on August 6th, so we're still digesting a lot of the information right now. I'm going to go through a few of the tools on the next slide. So the seasonal communities designation was automatically awarded to both Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. A big thank you to Julian Sear for his continued work on this. And it will allow other seasonal communities to be designated through the EOHLC to join. It's going to allow us to establish a year-round housing trust fund without a home rule process, and that's going to allow us to develop and create housing that's not AMI restricted. It's also going to allow us to create year-round housing occupancy restrictions, which is exactly what our pilot program aims to do with the trust, but those had an income restriction on them. So this would allow people to stay in their homes and not have an income restriction or resale restriction, but would keep it in the year-round housing market. Additionally, a big one for us in the Vineyard is that it allows towns to acquire and develop housing units specifically intended for public employees. And this includes the use of federal LIHTC funds, which is the low-income housing tax credits. So that really opens up the opportunities to use funding towards municipal housing. The other things included in this was the ability to increase the residential property tax exemption up to 50% for primary homes of year-round residents. And towns may adopt bylaws or ordinances enabling the construction of tiny homes on undersized lots. So there's a lot of things that we're still digging into and learning more about and how these are going to be put into place. But the tools will be vital in creating this bifurcated housing market that attracts and retains our year-round community.
Just can I make a comment? I think the 50% on the residential property tax could be huge with the expenses that we're facing. And we've been very careful not to, do too much and have that ability, but that's great to know. And the LIHTC could be substantial.
Absolutely.
That's free money, basically. It's a lot of red tape. It's a lot of work to do, but it's great.
Next slide. On April 11th, we took the 8th grade civics class and a variety of community members to Boston, along with community members from Martha's Vineyard to advocate on behalf of the Affordable Homes Act. Given the results, I do think that this did not go unnoticed, and we really thanked the 8th grade students for their participation. They were able to share their stories with Senator Sear's staff and really talk about how the housing crisis has impacted their lives already. Next slide. Just to recap, annual town meeting in May had 2 articles. The first was a home rule petition to allow for a real estate transfer fee. This did pass, and we'll continue. We had this in there in case the Affordable Homes removed it, which it did, so we'll continue to work this avenue and see if there's another route for a transfer fee. Second, we did submit a home rule petition to allow for year-round housing occupancy restrictions, and while this passed, the seasonal communities now allows for this. Next slide. The Dr. Howard Dickler Housing Advocacy Award. This was created last year in 2023 and is awarded each year at annual town meeting. The winner this year was Mr. Richard Hussey, and the award honors a community member who best exhibits the spirit of Dr. Dickler on housing advocacy. And Mr. Hussey is a fantastic example of this. He served on the board of Habitat for Humanity and is currently their construction committee chair. He's built relationships with subcontractors in the town to accelerate the construction of Habitat homes. This year, they're undertaking their largest project to date in developing 6 homes on Waite Drive, when previous projects took a few years to complete just 1 home. So we're really excited to present that to Richard Hussey this year. A little bit about the year-round deed restriction pilot program that I've touched on a couple of times. So this program would allow homeowners or buyers looking to become homeowners to apply for this program to place a year-round deed restriction on their property. In exchange for this, we would offer a cash incentive. This would allow people either stay in their current homes or allow potential homeowners to come in and use this as a down payment assistant. There's been a lot of work done with this. We've hired Judy Barrett, and her group has had info sessions with the community. As I mentioned, this has been on many of the trust meeting agendas, and we're in the final steps of being able to launch this program. That's okay. You go. Okay. Next slide, please. So next, I'm just going to go over a couple construction projects and the current status of them. First are two projects from Habitat and Housing Nantucket. They've both completed their lotteries for their home ownership and rental units at Waite Drive and Wiggles Way, respectively. Habitat saw 10 applicants for each available home, while Housing Nantucket saw 22 applicants for each available rental unit. The demand was higher than they've seen in previous lotteries, and both projects are underway with completion dates this fall. Richmond currently has 2 projects in place, and this will complete their phased development over on Old South Road. The Gooseberry Place development is a 55-unit rental, and Sandpiper Place 2 is the construction of their last 7 homeownership unit projects. Lastly, Hull Keene will be developing 6 Fairgrounds, what they call Tacoma Green, and this is a 64-unit rental development. Next slide. As I mentioned, we are working to put out the RFPs for 135 and 137 Orange Street, 16 Vesper, 12 Bartlett, and 7 Amelia. They're currently under review by Town Council and the Finance Department, and this will be a big milestone for the trust to issue these RFPs. This would create 64 units of rentals across those 4 projects. We will continue to start to develop the RFP for 8 White Street. Thank you. So to review funding that has been allocated over the past quarter. The first was a grant to Richmond for $6,725,000. And what we did with this program was buy down, what we call buy down, market rate units into affordable units. So we took some of their market rate units and brought them into 80%, 110%, and 120% of area median income, so that only 50% of those units will be affordable and 50% will be market versus the typical 25-75% makeup. The town is also going to enter into a master lease for 10 of these market rate units for municipal employee housing. This grant allows Richmond to recertify the project with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities and becomes eligible for safe harbor. And as I mentioned, this is our Plan B. Richmond will be opening the lottery for their additional income restricted units very shortly. It's up at the state right now getting approved. So I encourage community members to tune in, look at our website. We'll be announcing it as in many places as possible to get the word out there. The next grant that the Select Board and the Trust approved was a $450,000 grant to Housing Nantucket. This is part of their housing recycling program, and they moved a 1-bedroom home onto their land, and they will be constructing it into a 2-bedroom rental. And lastly, we approved a $450,000 grant to Housing Nantucket for the Lease to Locals program. I've talked about this in length, but it's meant to subsidize and incentivize the conversion of underutilized homes into year-round rentals. Last year, the project was able to attract 22 year-round rentals, and the funding from the Affordable Housing Trust is hoping to retain current landlords and maintaining those year-round rentals, and also encourage an additional 22 landlords to opt in. With the trust fund funding this program, there's now going to be income restrictions and rent caps by bedroom size to keep everything affordable. I already went over this slide at the last update, so I won't go into too much detail here, but it's basically our plan of how to stay in safe harbor up and reach our goal by 2027. So on the horizon, this covers what the trust has done over the past quarter. We'll continue to be working on issuing those RFPs. We'll be exploring the good landlord tax exemption and advocating for the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to approve of a special municipal local preference. We'll be diving into the Affordable Homes Act, and I'm hoping to have Julian Sear at a trust meeting shortly to go over what he knows. I know he's taking a break after a very long and intense legislative session. So I'll hopefully have him in front of the Select Board as well to give that update. And we're continuing to work on our housing website. We've been looking at a lot of other websites around the state and the country and really trying to figure out how to get information out to the community as best as we can. I think these quarterly updates have been a great addition, but I want to make sure that information is available at people's fingertips. So we have a ton of information about each project and updates. Every time something is updated, we're putting that on the website, and we'll have all of our programs on there as well.
So to contact you, though, if anybody wanted to reach out to you, it's through the Affordable Housing Trust page, not a housing page.
It is now a housing page.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Awesome.
We are updating, the logo right now does say affordable housing, but it is a housing page that incorporates what the Affordable Housing Trust is doing. And that was one thing to try to make everything very clear. That's a coordinated effort from my office.
That's great. Thank you, Christy. Any questions or comments? Tom?
Madam Chair, yeah, Chrissy, I just want to say that when you came into being housing director and the hiring of the new employees, Rachel Field and Ellis Ramos, as your staff have been absolutely terrific, and our packets are done on time and minutes are good and our meetings run really well. So I really appreciate this update to the select board. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I remember the year that our request for housing funding got cut to, I think, $300,000. It was right when I was starting to get involved in housing advocacy in the island. And it is beyond stunning. It's making my head spin, really, all the variety of activities, the breadth of need that's going to be addressed by all these activities. Thanks to the community for continuing to vote financial support for our housing initiatives. It is, I mean, literally, it brings tears to my eyes what this community has done in the last decade around housing. And thanks to both Tucker and Christy for leading the charge. It's amazing to me, just amazing. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Christy. Okay, all things housing. Next, we have an update on the Baxter Road Alternative Access Project. And who's going to lead us? Is that going to be, Vince, are you going to introduce Bill and the Arcadis team? Hang on one sec. We have a hand raised. It may be about housing. Richard Nyland? Sorry, I missed it.
Me too.
Actually, no, I'm on the Baxter Road. I was asking if I could go first because I have a meeting at 7:20 in another community. I was hoping I could handle the question relative to the signature for the Coir Terrace relative to Baxter Road, which is listed as the second item, but I was hoping we could go first.
No, we've put the agenda items in order for a reason. So unless someone else on the board.
I may not be able to join you, that's all, so.
Okay, I'm sorry for that. But we're gonna stick with the order of agenda for intentional reasons. So Vince?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vince Murphy from the Natural Resources Department. Through the last several months, I think the last update, beg your pardon, yeah, this is a constant problem for me. For the last several months, we've been working on an update for this. I think the last update that was presented to the Select Board was in February. We're supposed to do quarterly updates, and we've had to try and resolve some issues so that we can get back on track with the project and come back to the quarterly updates. Through you, Madam Chair, and with your permission, I'd like to introduce Bill Greeder from Arcadis, not Bill Greeder, my friend Bill Case from Arcadis, to go over the alternative access project and the emergency access project, should either be needed. Thank you, and to Bill.
Thanks, Vince. Hi, Bill. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Vince. One of it is really a two-part presentation, the emergency readiness plan.
Bill, you're coming through a little garbled. I don't know whether it's microphone.
No, let me move a little bit closer. Is that any better?
Marginally. Go ahead. Try again.
So it's really a two-part presentation tonight. Is that better?
That's better.
Okay, thank you. One is a little bit of a revisit for the emergency readiness plan, which is now up on the town's website. We did a presentation about this back in.
Bill,
Yes.
we're still struggling to hear you. I'm not sure.
I could pop out and pop back in, if that helps, but I hate to do that. Let me, everything tested okay on my end prior to the meeting. Is that still?
We can hear you, but it sounds a little like you're in a fish tank.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
It sounds better.
Okay, try again. We'll see how it goes.
Well, we could just advance the slides. It's really a two-part presentation, emergency readiness, and then the alternative access update. Here's our wonderful team. We can move forward. This is the project area. Of course, to the north is the Sanctuary Head Lighthouse and the golf club. To the seaward side is Baxter Road, and to the west is Sanctuary Road, and the southern end is Bayberry Lane. And really, this is a project to provide alternative access should Baxter Road be succumb to erosion. We'll go to the next one. So this is, and one more. So this is a recap really of the emergency readiness plan. And so this is if, as we are today, there's no construction of the alternative access at this point, and what happens if there's a breach of the bluff along Baxter Road in the planning that should go along with that to try to maintain occupancy for the residents there. Go on. This is just an overall timeline of the project, of how the alternative access project overlaps with the emergency readiness plan. You can see on the bottom, the emergency readiness plan was posted on the town's website just a little bit ago, and has a finite duration of life until the alternative access plan has been implemented and constructed. And on the top side, that is the timeline, the best we have it for the alternative access. Potentially bidding in the spring with construction FY 25 through 27. In planning for access and temporary utilities should a breach occur, we looked at really the two most vulnerable locations where a breach could potentially occur. Here we've identified location 1 in green in around 105 Baxter, and location 5, which is in purple here around 85 Baxter. The next slide identifies really a lot of Vince's team's good work of measurements between the bluff and the edge of road at various locations along Baxter. Just to point out, at location 1, at that 105 Baxter, it's 36 feet between the bluff and the road, and that's eroded slightly over time. And then the alternate location, or the second location, is at 85 Baxter, where it's at 53 feet between the bluff and the edge of road. Go to the next. So here's kind of a really of a decision tree, or almost a flow chart, if you will, of the potential occurrence of a breach. Really, there's two paths. One would be a major storm event, unforeseen. This is along the bottom, where you've got an extreme weather event. A breach occurs along the bluff. You need to take immediate action. This involves the police in blockading the road, notification of residents, and evacuating the area. Something that's a little bit more gradual, if the measurements and smaller storms have dictated that the erosion is a little bit slower. As soon as we get around the 25-foot mark between the edge of road and the edge of the top of Bluff. Then there's another phase to have the slope evaluated by 3 licensed civil engineers, and then make a determination, is Baxter Road still safe or is it deemed unsafe at that position? And then take course of action accordingly. Go to the next one. And this is really what I've kind of explained on emergency and non-emergency conditions. We could probably move forward just in interest of time. In gaining access to the area after a breach, you really need, first, vehicular access would be ideal for maintaining temporary utilities. And unless there's something constructed, then you'd only be accessing along pedestrian. And so people could only get to their homes if traversing across another person's property. What we've identified here to the north, I don't really have a pointer, but where the start is, that's where the planned access road along the northern end of Baxter Road identifies a memorandum of understanding, and that's along the golf club property. If alternative access has not been constructed at that time, it's recommended that a rough cut roadway get put in there so emergency vehicles and maintenance vehicles could gain access to the isolated portions of Baxter Road should a breach occur. And this just identifies if a breach is at location 1 or at location 5. An alternate means, a little less desirable, is that there could be access through the Sconset Light property. Town has a little piece of land identified as almost a little hockey stick that goes along the lighthouse property and could get you to the end of Baxter Road. Go to the next one. This is similar, just showing the importance of or the primary objective to get the rough cut of the MOU road in. So I just really wanted to take a step back and really talk a little bit about house occupancy. Should a breach occur at either location, those houses that are on the, I guess, unfortunate side of the breach, on the downstream or down utility side of the breach, would be left without means of water or means of disposing sewage. And those are both requirements to maintain occupancy of that residence. So that's why it becomes important to get provisions as quick as possible to get folks back into their homes. Here we've identified just a little bit of the regulations, certainly the plumbing code, making sure the building's safe through the building inspector, and then it's approved through the Board of Health. Go to the next. And the next couple of slides are just a couple of means of showing how temporary utilities could get to individual properties should there be a breach, broken into immediate course of action and more of a medium duration option until the permanent fix could get implemented. Here on the water side, something as simple as bottled water could be immediate action, whereas a medium duration would be to install a temporary water main, whether it be along another section, unbreached area of Baxter Road, and running through either people's private properties or providing a tap off of Sankaty Road. And then similarly, the next slide talks a little bit about providing temporary means of sewer. And here there are a couple of different aspects. Some of the homes along the landward side of Baxter Road, a lot of those homes have already small grinder pumps and little wet wells that they're in. That buys them a little bit of time should there not be any power to power the pumps, but there's a volume of storage there. Folks that do not have things such as a grinder pump would need something very quickly in means of portable toilets if they're trying to maintain any level of occupancy. Medium duration option might be to take that to a next step on those who have a grinder pump. If you can get power restored, let's say the breach has blocked the road and disconnected the sewer lines, you could pump into a tight tank that could temporarily be, just placed there, sewage could be pumped there, but then you would need access to allow a septic hauler in, again, the vehicle requirements to get to that area to pump those tanks out because they have finite time or storage, if you will. Next slide. This is also just the plan touches it briefly on other private utilities that are out there. I mean, certainly each of these utilities has to have their own plan for restoring power. Electric, of course, is really key. And also propane is, I'm not sure on the mix between who uses propane for heat versus cooking, but that's another main. Cable, I feel like people could make do, and telephone, most folks have cell phones at this point. Go to the next one. So it's just a little bit about this area is very seasonal, but should a breach occur, really to identify who's out in the area, get notification to those folks and residents who are in the area first, and then, make sure that the folks who are out there get evacuated and get notified and evacuated should that be required. A little bit about cleanup, if you will, should a breach occur. Certainly the town is responsible for cleaning up any means of a breach on public property. However, private parcel owners would be responsible for cleaning up of their own private litters that happened on their property, and should that, impact the public realm as well. And really, we're all working towards a permit solution out here. In this case, we're looking to implement the alternative access and utility relocation plan, which I can talk briefly about next. You could probably go one more. So this is just a even briefer timeline. Really, the goal of this project, and it's been a couple of years now, maybe 18 months or so, is get to a shovel-ready final set of design documents that could be implemented should there be a problem or an indication that we're moving forward. We'll go next. So with the project in about the beginning of the year, we achieved about 90% design level, full contract documents, design, plans, got quite a bit through a bit of the permitting process. We received some comment from one of the major abutters there, the golf club, who had a request for some alignment changes. And it took a little bit of time to go back and forth and negotiate to see what those alignment changes would be and what that could potentially do to the existing project. So the next two slides kind of talk a little bit about that. Just to frame it on the, I guess the yellow is the original alignment, and where it overlaps with the cyan or the blue is where the abutter would like the roadway to be. Now you can see there's a little bit of overlap between where things were original versus where the desired location would be. And there's an area identified in red, which is a little bit, I would consider, of a compromise area. So the best that I could describe it is it was the golf club's desire to, preserve as much of their property as possible, which would entail moving the alignment a little bit closer and try to maximize or adjust the alignment so it could get a little bit tucked in the corner there. And that'd be the area in red. Knowing that emergency vehicles cannot necessarily make a 90-degree turn. That's why the golf club was receptive to that. And I'll show you on the next slide, we've got a little bit of a modified alignment. So the original alignment at 90% design is in blue. And keeping with the general theme and just trying to get it a little bit closer to the east, we've bent the access way slightly to the east while maintaining emergency vehicle turning radiuses. And it's about 25 feet or so. At this scale, it doesn't look like much, but it is a little bit, and every little bit helps. Also to point out on this plan, the pathway that was originally to the lighthouse has been modified. And this is a little bit maybe a multiple phase process with respect to providing ADA access to the lighthouse. So the current plan is to any individual with a disability that is seeking to get to the lighthouse will be allowed to go by vehicle along the access way, travel between 110 and 112, and then hop onto existing Baxter Road, and then get to the lighthouse by that fashion. And the little pathway at the end of the access way is more of a walking path at this time. This alignment changes, although it is slight. It does require us to take another harder look at the permitting that's been done to date. We did do an archaeological survey involving digging, hand digging test pits to identifying and looking for artifacts along the blue path. And we are currently in discussions with whether or not additional archaeological survey needs to be done along the red path. Other small changes, we'll have to notify NHESP as we're in their permitting process for endangered species and square footages and areas. This also affects our Conservation Commission submittal on notice of intent for this project. So there's a few items still in the process, but this is where we are right now. We could go to the next. This should be a timeline of the work that's ongoing. So ideally, we will be completing our design this winter. Included in there will be a series of appraisals and easements that'll be needed to construct the work. The permitting effort, of course, will be ongoing. And then there'll be discussions and preparations for potential with the town meeting in the spring. Pending funding, construction could begin in the summer or fall of next year. And we're predicting it to be about a 2-year construction. And the last slide has to do with our current cost estimate. And this is where we were at the 90% design. Don't expect it to change significantly with these alignment changes. We're talking here about our phase 1 construction, which is from Bayberry to the lighthouse, if you will. And that is $25 million. And then contingencies should be applied on each one of those. And that's the end of this presentation, I believe. If there are any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, one is who's gonna, seeing those numbers, How are they, is any of that bettered? Who's going to pay for that? How's that? Have those discussions happened yet?
We have.
Just,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
no, I was just going to say we're just scratching the surface of that.
Yeah, I think the current thinking is some sort of betterment arrangement, but we really need to do a lot of work on that. And in fact, I'm a little hesitant about the readiness of getting this to the 2025 annual town meeting. So we probably need a little more internal discussion about that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Vince, did you want to add anything? Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Great, thank you much.
Okay, have a good night. Okay, next up is Sconset Beach Preservation Fund. Two items, discussion of the notice of intent progress and request for change in construction sequencing for town and SBPF, Baxter Road and Sconset Bluff Stabilization and Coastal Resiliency Project. Vince?
Thank you. Just again, let me just get the volume right. Happy with this? Okay. So again, Vince Murphy with the Natural Resources Department. I just want to go through a little bit of how we got to where we are with the construction sequencing. I want to give a little bit of background and detail. I promise it's all relevant, even though I go back about 3 years. So must also start by saying that this is essentially a discussion between applicants, co-applicants, the town and SBPF, and I need to get the board up to speed and make sure everyone's happy so that we can then think about the discussion part of it. So this is how we proceed before CONCOM. The CONCOM will be making this decision about if Reach 1 is in there and the reason why and the reasons why. But SBPF are looking to change some of this. So I just want to go back to about November 2021. Arcadis did a feasibility assessment for the Baxter Road. We called it the long-term planning memo. That led to a two-part system for both extending the geotube system and for the alternative access that Bill just spoke on. March in 2022, we had an MOU, and that related to the 2022 Notice of Intent application that came out later that year. That was done in the fall and summer of 2022 and submitted on December 1st, 22. The first hearing was December 21st, and shortly after, in January 12, 2023, SBPF withdrew that Notice of Intent. Then nothing happened up until about August and September when when SBPF re-engaged with the town to discuss how we could restart and look at a different way to approach that project. October 4th, I beg your pardon, 2023, the Select Board discussed and outlined a path to a new NOI, the second NOI. The key difference was the town is an active partner and participant in the NOI, not just supporting it like we did with the first one. That was the second one. And in that discussion on October 4th, when we were talking about the Notice of Intent, there were two key points that were raised: to increase benefit to the town and to reduce risks to the town. This reiterates part of the need for Reach 1. We'll get on to more on this. In the 2022 Notice of Intent, there was a sentence that said that note, the 400-foot extension from 109 to 117 Baxter Road will be the first priority for construction. So that's the origin of this, because it came from other documents, but that was the first time it was in a Notice of Intent. In the 2023 Notice of Intent that was filed in December, and we've been in hearings for the last several months, the language was very similar. The 400-foot extension fronting 109 through 117 Baxter Road will be the first priority for construction as identified in the Memorandum of Understanding, brackets MOU, close brackets, between the town and SBPF. So that is the reason why CONCOM took it from that Notice of Intent and had it in the draft order of conditions. Again, there's another supporting document, again, another agreement between the town and SBPF. The MOU from March 2022, there's a long sentence in that, and I'm only going to read part of it with your permission. Whereas the board and SBPF desire also to seek permitting as co-applicants for phased expansion of an existing project to areas where erosion is undermining the toe of the natural bluff and threatening failure, and the existing public way, public infrastructure, and the pre-1978 residences, so that the board, on behalf of the town, and SBPF may best serve their representative interests in a mutually beneficial public-private partnership with private funding. Private funding being important there. So then, just to go through some other parts just for the Concom and the update for the Commission and how things have gone there over the last 8-ish months. In December, it got filed.
Hang on, can you hold just for a second? The other thing, just go before you leave the first part, I think what we have to remember is there was part of why we became a co-applicant was because the Concom wanted to ensure that there was that some of the things that weren't happening would happen, and we would be on the hook for them as well. The town was promising increased oversight and that we would be a co-applicant so that Vince would be riding herd on some of this. That was, if I remember the timing right, that was kind of how that ended up the way it did. There was talk about the sand catch-up and, who's going to make sure this happens, et cetera. So that was what happened. That drove, part of what drove the MOU at that time. Thank you.
Correct and right. And the main point of what I'm trying to hit tonight is about how we're going to talk about project phasing, but I promise I'll get to that. Just need a bit more background info first. Yep. In December 2023, after much debate and discussion, and not wanting to miss another Concom submission deadline, SBPF agreed to reach one going first. That was for the 2023 Notice of Intent. There were two options discussed at the time. Initial agreement was that to construct Reach 1 first. SBPF later wanted to change this to constructing Reach 1 and Reach 3 at the same time. Both had the same effect of getting the necessary protection for Reach 1 as soon as possible. Both satisfied the increased benefit to the town with reduced risk. Hearing for the new NOI with the town and SBPF began on in front of the Concom in January 4th, 2024. The hearings are continuing. The last and most recent hearing was August 8th, and the next hearing is August 22nd, tomorrow. So another touch point in that one. All the presentations have been undertaken, and all as have the questions and answers in the public sessions and the public feedback. The hearings are now in the deliberative phase, and the Concom is reviewing a positive draft order of conditions. That draft order is in your packet. The hearings remain open, and SBPF and the public can comment through the deliberative phase. Both the town and SBPF have agreed with the Concom to keep the hearings open so that all parties can discuss the draft order of conditions. If we close the hearings, it would trigger a 21-day period that the Concom must produce findings in. As this is a complex set of conditions in the draft order conditions, it is beneficial for all sides to keep the hearing open. After months of public hearings and discussion leading up to the August 8th Concom meeting, SBPF voiced concerns about Reach 1 going first. The main issue is it seems to be able to pay for the works in that area due to the relatively few numbers of people living at that end of the road. Earlier in the day, on August 8th of the Concom meeting, we discussed the sentence in the draft order conditions saying that Reach 1 shall be constructed first. This seems to be the Concom's desire as well as the town team that work on this project. SBPF wanted to remove the sentence. I said that was something that I could not agree to, and that it would represent a significant policy shift on behalf of the town as co-applicant. Policies like this are handled at the Select Board, and that SBPF would have to write a letter to the Select Board to discuss the policy change. Policy is your field. SBPF and I agreed not to bring it up at the Concom that night. Nevertheless, SBPF's attorney did request that Concom remove that sentence at the August 8th Concom meeting. This is when I had to speak up as this was not in the best interest of the town. The purpose of the discussion at tonight's Select Board meeting is about construction sequencing with the town as an applicant. The question is essentially if the Select Board will agree or not to a change in the construction sequencing. This means not have Reach 1 go first and have Phase 3 Reach 3 go first. This would mean that the area most at risk in Reach 1 is left until after Reach 2 and Reach 3 are constructed. This would potentially mean Reach 1 would be postponed, possibly indefinitely. We don't know. This raises a question about each of the 5 reaches being completed if funders dry up for each reach. Does that mean that, say, for example, if reach 4 may not be constructed or not be viable at a future point, if the funders dry up? It is not clear how many funders are attached to each of the 5 reaches or the funding structure for each of the 5 reaches. It calls into question if reach 1 will ever be built. From a resilience point of view, and this is a resilience project, and from the town benefit point of view, reach 1 needs to go first. And that's my opinion. The board gets to choose. I don't. Next, I would like to go through some sample maps, some example maps that are in the select board packet to show the issues and the proposed construction for each reach. Erica, if you don't mind, about page 120 in the packet. There's about 24. I'm not going to dwell on them. I'm going to go quickly through these for the select board's benefit, just so that everyone can just see the issues at hand. Yes, please. That's just fine right there. If you could scroll down just a little. Perfect. Yeah, maybe take it out of the full screen mode. So do you see where it says reach 1, 2, and 3 on the side? Can we just go up to reach 1 for a second? No worries. So reach 1 goes from the junction more or less between 107A and 109, call it 109, up to 119. That's about 400 feet. Reach 2, south of that, it's also where all the properties are marked in green. Reach 2 is where the existing geotubes are, with a little extra room either side for the properties that are marked in green. Reach 3 is south of that and goes from 83 down to 73. And those 3, reaches 1, 2, and 3 represent phase 1. Phase 2 of development is reaches 4 and 5. Reach 4 would initially be a core log area, and reach 5 would be a dune field that's monitored and would possibly go to core or possibly geotubes, depending on erosion over time. If we could go down to the next slide. The main part tonight is reaches 1, 2, and 3. This is it without the lines, just so that people can see it. We can go to the next one. So this is the very north end of Baxter Road. You can see 109, 113, 115, 117, and the empty property at 119. 117 would be the last house protected, and the end returns would go below this area. I want to draw your attention to the fact that it's not much distance from the edge of the bluff to the edge of the road. Next one. This is the area just to the immediate north of the geotubes from 107 and 109 and the beginning of the geotubes, and you can see how the bank face changes from being unvegetated to vegetated as you move south. Thank you. So this is the center part of the geotubes. This is the current protection area that ends at about 85. Next, please. There's the south end of the geotubes. The area around 77, 79, and 81 has changed contour quite significantly after erosion this winter. But please note the increased distance from the edge of the bluff to the edge of the road. Next, please, Erica. And then this is south of that. This is the kind of getting into reach 4. Oh, sorry, that's the end of reach 3. Next, please. We can skip this. That's reach 4. Reach 5, and then we can go next. So this is an important one. We'll have to scroll through this a little slowly, Erica, please. So the blue line represents where the top of bank was in 1994, and the red line where it was in 2020. And you can see for the properties at 109, 113, and 117, how close they are to the edge, and you can see where the road is and the large differential between 94 and 2022. Scroll down, Erica. You can just keep going, please. It broadens and narrows, as you can see, over time. And once you get towards the geotube area south of 109, getting towards 105, this is protected by the geotubes. We're good. Keep going down. You can see how it tapers off in places and broadens again. That's the 87 represents the end of the geotubes, as does 85. That intersection between them is where the sand gets put down the bluff face. Then that's 83, that's where things start to change, and you see it narrowing in change over time from 94 to 2022. Thank you, Erica. Just keep scrolling, please. There's one more slide like this where this is less well documented. Okay, so this is a difference between pre-78 and post-78 properties and lots that are currently vacant. Yellow is currently vacant, blue is pre-78 properties. There's only a small number of post-78 properties, defining the fact that most deserve protection. So this is an interesting set again. We're back up at the very north end of Baxter Road. You can see in the middle where lot 109 is, lot 113, 15, and 17. The distances as measured by LiDAR, light detecting radar, from the edges of the bluff edge to both the road and to the edges of buildings as it was in 2021. And there's houses that are 15 feet, 19 feet, and the one just to the, I know it's a landscape image. If you could scroll to the right, please, Erica. A house that's 32 feet from the edge. So if you can just go down to the next few slides. This represents Reach 1, by the way. Then we're into the area protected by current geotube project and the distances from the road edge to homes. Next, please, Erica. And at 83, you can see it's 22 feet from the nearest house to the edge of the bluff, and other homes are much more significantly large distances, 56, 46, 71 feet, for example, and they don't even measure the distance to the road here. Next, please, Erica. And as you continue down through Reach 3, you can see the distances increase. I must say, just for clarity, many of these, anything for 40 feet or less, under the Wetland Protection Act is considered imminent risk. Next. And so far we're getting into Reach 3 and 4, where the setbacks are quite significantly different. Next, please, Erica. This is an important slide, and I want to dwell on this one for a moment. These three color bands were produced by FEMA. You might remember during the development of the Coastal Resilience Plan, we were very fortunate to be given be the very first place in America to receive erosion forecasting and predictive models for how we might see a retreat. These models are based on sea level rise. This is the high sea level rise, so the worst case scenario. And they also assume no coastal protections whatsoever. They assume a natural erosion rate. So you can see that the three houses up in the very north end, 109, 113, and 117, they could be gone by 2030. Homes further south behind the geotubes marked in green, 93, 97, and the shed at 99 are behind geotubes, so you consider them somewhat safer. And as you go south, you can see that the color bands narrow up significantly. When you're in the Reach 3 area, there are homes that may not be gone by 2100. So that's outlining how things may change over time. That ought to do for now. I won't bother dwelling on the rest of the slides. It gives you the impression of where erosion is happening most quickly versus where it's not. So the question before you tonight, and I do mean this in the most sincere way, is not something I ever felt comfortable making a decision on. I was charged by the Select Board effectively to look out for the town's interest and look out for how we can get the best benefit from this project for the town, for the community. And that has been the reason why we are co-applicants in this. The request from SBPF, and they can make their case to you, is to ask if a different reach can go first rather than Reach 1. That is up to you. And I will follow whatever the board wishes on this one, but in reality, it would represent a significant risk to the town, and that is something that is up to the board and not something I could follow as part of the Coastal Resilience, as part of the CONCOM hearings.
Okay, thank you, Vince. Any questions from the board or comments at this point, Malcolm?
Madam Chair, just a couple of questions.
Yep.
So obviously the logic of having that is first phase was it was the most closest to actually going away. Could you make an argument that since it's almost doomed as it is, even tubes would not prevent it from falling? So we should just say, let that part of the road go.
I love the question, and it's a valid null hypothesis question. I love that. But I'm just going to be very clear. Should the geotubes get constructed in this area and be done correctly and managed correctly, it would almost certainly, within the 95th percentile, stop the erosion. It would change the way that the bluff face would get sloughed down. We'd have to vegetate the bluff face in order to slow that, but it would increase the longevity of those properties significantly, to the point where we wouldn't be discussing this.
Thank you.
By the way, just to clarify, I do understand the purpose and the methods that geotubes work. They are in a very effective structure once done correctly.
Okay, thanks. Any other, Tom?
Madam Chair, yeah, Vince, that map that NOAA did for the projected erosion, was that from 2012? Is that what I saw in there?
FEMA.
Excuse me, FEMA, thank you.
It used the 2012 sea level rise information. It's been updated twice since. These maps were initially produced in 2017. At the time, that was the most current information available, and the current predicted change as of 2022. So it was 2012, 2017, and 2022 were the data sets. 2017 was very different data, and 2022 is far more similar to 2012.
So these maps are iterative, and they get updated, and you use them in your...
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Dawn?
I see that Meredith has her hand up,
Yep.
but maybe I could just ask, and maybe she can speak to this. I mean, it appears that obviously one is the most immediately threatened. But it seems that maybe a lot of the funding is coming from the production of 3, just the reality of the situation. Could they indicate whether they could be done concurrently, where they sort of shore up number 2 that needs more sand and build 3 and 1 all within the same scope of project, and then before they move on to the 4 and 5 proposal? And also, I would look to what Concom is willing to accept, obviously.
Yes.
But I guess it's just whether we allow them to make any changes into what we had said originally.
Yeah. So essentially, Reach 1 first was an option that was discussed and we agreed to, and then they wanted to change it to having Reach 3 and Reach 1 constructed at the same time, and we said yes, essentially because that still fulfills what we need to see Reach 1 done first. Meredith can speak better to the funding part that seems to be the obstacle.
Okay. Meredith?
Good evening, members of the Select Board and the public. Meredith Moldenhauer on behalf of the SBPF, Sconset Beach Preservation Fund. Thank you, Vince, for summarizing a lot of what hopefully we'll talk about today, and I hope you give me a few minutes to kind of walk through. I think that, some of the things that were said by Vince are accurate, that it has taken us a long time to get where we are today, and this has been a really difficult process to work out, negotiate, and come together as a joint group between the Select Board and SBPF. But we are happy that we are actually at a stage where we are today, as Vince indicated, at the end of the hopeful CONCOM process, and with them discussing potential approved order of conditions. But as you saw in our letter, we are requesting that you vote tonight to allow for some flexibility. That's what we're asking for here. Flexibility in the construction phasing. And this does have to do with fundraising and financing. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to work together to hopefully see the first private-public coastal resiliency project here approved. And what we don't want is we don't want just an approved order of conditions that's a piece of paper that never gets built. You don't want people, as you heard earlier tonight, a discussion about the road project and how long is that going to take? 3 years before the public sees something? We want the ability to not just see paper being pushed, but actually to see the start of construction, to see shovels in the ground, and to see something that can be an indication of all of these great years of work between the town, the Nantucket community, the Sconset community, and Baxter Road homeowners. What we're talking about is trying to hopefully not place formality over practicality. We've heard discussions about Reach 2 and Reach 3. Those are the part of phase 1. Phase 1 always included Reaches 1, 2, and 3, and those have to be completed before phase 2, Reaches 3 or 4, can start. We are not asking you to change that. All we are asking is to be able to build Reach 2 and Reach 3 first, giving time to allow for funding and fundraising, which we've always said and was included in our NOI and in our discussion, that Reach 1 would need outside private philanthropic fundraising or fundraising from people other than the homeowners. That's always been the case. And rather than waiting and having to wait for that fundraising to occur after we've already waited over 8 months and many years and over 10 years as we've gone through this project, we want to be able to get started and show that momentum. I also want to point out, though, that Reach 2 doesn't just include the existing Geo2 project. It includes 160 feet north beyond 107A. We heard earlier tonight from Bill Casey, who is the town in Arcadis' discussion, that the green circle he showed, which was the area of potentially an emergency condition, that was at location 105. If we were allowed to do Reach 2, it actually covers that portion because we do go north 160 feet beyond the current geotubes. It also goes south, though it talks about doing the biggest project first. That's 1,382 feet. And then doing Reach 3, which would be only 660 feet. The issue here is to allow those to move forward and allow for that time while we're getting shovels in the ground and building Reaches 2 and 3 to obtain the funding and then build Reach 1. Without that ability, we're talking about delay, and we don't want to see that delay. We want to build on this momentum. We also, some of the things kind of, why are we asking for this now? Well, we had storms that were not part of a lot of the data that Vince showed you that are true life factors, right? What homeowners on Baxter Road are living with. We had major storms this past December, January, and March of 2024 that hit Reaches 2 and 3 the hardest. That's where we had major loss of sand, major loss of part of people's properties. We'd also, like the NOI data shows that Reaches 3 and 4 have what it's called the higher rate of return. I'm not an expert here, I'm a homeowner, but the higher rate of return means to me erosion happens faster there. Obviously, that's what that says. And so we are asking for this process to allow the Concom, not us, but the Concom to make a decision saying to them, hey, we understand that maybe there might be an opportunity here for flexibility and allow for Reaches 2 and 3 to go forward and then Reach 1 to still be part of phase 1. We're not saying that Reach 1's not going to be part of phase 1, but it would give us time to fundraise for that, to show our supporters, to show the greater community that we actually are here, that we're building this project, that it's going forward, especially as the upcoming winter approaches. I'd be happy to answer any questions and kind of walk through why we're asking for this, but I also think that, we've had a lot of learnings, right, through all these years that we've been working together. This is hopefully the first of its kind on the island. And we've been told by you and by other people, we need to ask for things rather than trying to maybe deal with a bad situation and then coming back. Right now, we're asking you based on what's happening in the current condition today. And this is based on the time that's evolved. And we're hoping that you give us this flexibility and that we then see what the Concom does and we are able to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Meredith. Malcolm?
I have one question. I mean, what guarantee do we have that phase 1 or that beach 1 will ever be done? I mean, you say it will be done in cooperation or at the same time, but you have no funding for it. So we have no guarantee that part of the project will ever be completed. And it's the most sensitive one that probably needs it most.
Well, it's not the most sensitive one, as I said. I mean, you have other areas that have a higher level of erosion rates, and so if you make Reach 1 go first, you have less chance of obviously the whole project going forward because then we're talking about major delays. If you allow for Reach 2 and 3 and then tie, which we always had, tie reach one to the first phase, we then obviously, that guarantees that obviously phase one has to be completed before we can go into phase two, which is reaches 3, 4, and 5. So I think that's always been this kind of understanding of connecting and requiring phase one. We're not changing phase one. Phase one would still require all phases, reach 1, 2, and 3 to be constructed before we can go into phase two.
Dawn?
Could there be a time constraint put on it that if you were to start 2 and 3 prior to 1, that 1 would be completed in X amount of months after, and that there might be, there needs to be some guarantee, is what I'm thinking.
We would be open to any level of flexibility that the select board would be willing to grant.
Vince?
I hate to disagree with Meredith twice in the same month, but a fact is a fact. Reach 1 has the highest erosion rate historically. Erosion rates change in areas over time. This is true. But in reality, the most erosion, the most at-risk properties and sections of road are in Reach 1. And if we lose access to the lighthouse that we've been talking about preserving for years, because we're preserving houses that look like they might remain to 2100, it doesn't make sense from a resilience point of view. I can understand that they have a funding problem, but in 3 separate instances in the MOU, in the first notice of intent and the second notice of intent, they always agreed that Reach 1 was the necessity that must go first. It's what they've agreed to 3 times.
Thank you.
This kind of highlights for me the need to have to develop a coastal resiliency district with betterments. This, because part of the problem now is this is voluntary. People are donating voluntarily. And if we had something in place where everyone had to contribute based on, where they were located, I think we would have more control and be dictating this instead of what is happening now, has been happening for 15 years. And so, I know that's, and I'm not sure that's going to be done like immediately, but I wrote those notes. And I think the other part is this is going to require town meeting vote, correct? All right, so this is going to require a town meeting vote. Which it means that, we have to, you got to think, we have to be able to get to town meeting and convince people that this is the right thing to do. And I think the first thing you're going to hear is, how can we trust them? This hasn't done. There wasn't sand. They didn't put sand on forever. And so we have to think about it, whether we all agree with that position or not. That's going to be a very strong argument at town meeting. And so I'm not sure what to do here. I'm just pointing out maybe maybe I'm just pointing out the obvious, but.
So I'd like clarification from town council on what are the steps that we take, starting with this decision, to ultimately approving the project in whatever the order is, the current order that's in the NOI, a revised order of the reaches, and please walk me through today to the point where permission is granted and construction can begin from a approval standpoint.
Yes, good evening, Brooke and members of the board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, George.
This is Attorney George Pucci from KP Law. You have a pending notice of intent that's being heard by the commission. So the board had authorized, signed off, basically granting permission to apply as a co-applicant on the existing notice of intent with SBPF pending before the Conservation Commission. So there's no town meeting issue with regard to that. However, it will be an expansion project, and there will be definitely a use of town-owned coastal land as part of this. So in the event of approval, and you go ahead and any type of construction of the structure goes forward, no matter where you start the project with, that part will need town meeting approval. In other words, the license that the town would enter into for the use of the town-owned land would be subject to town meeting approval. To Matt's point, kind of to follow up on it and focus you in on the issue is, you know, in the event of a Conservation Commission approval of the project with an order of conditions, you know, it would be reasonable to conclude that there's a pretty good likelihood that you could obtain the requisite town meeting approval of a license to use town-owned land, because presumably, you know, the select board's on board with it. The Conservation Commission has issued an order of conditions, and there would be a compelling case to be made at town meeting that town meeting should in fact approve the license. So that part would come later. So you would seek that town meeting approval, presumably in the event of a positive order of conditions allowing the project to go forward. But that town meeting approval has nothing to do with this issue of, you know, what part of the project would go first, you know, in terms of some type of sequencing condition. That's something that would be, you know, subject to agreement between you and SBPF. Presumably, I haven't heard from Vince that the commission favors it one way or another. I don't know that though. You know, I don't know what the commission's position, if any, on this is about what part of the project should proceed, you know, in terms of sequencing. My understanding is tomorrow, and I've been asked on behalf of the board through Libby to start attending the Conservation Commission hearings on this remotely. So that their next hearing session is apparently tomorrow. I don't know if they've taken a position on the sequencing, but right now it's just basically a matter between you and SBPF about what you want to try to agree to, but it doesn't implicate town meeting implications. That would come later.
Yeah. My question about timeline was more in terms of like how much time between now and when they could start anyway for fundraising purposes. I was just trying to clarify that in my head. Jeff, I see you're on camera. Did you have anything to add?
Good evening, I'm Jeff Carlson, Natural Resources Director. I thought George was asking a question towards the commission, but he revised it into a statement. So I'm ready to answer any questions in that vein, but I'm all set for now. Just trying to be attentive and ready.
Okay.
Brooke, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do we know that it would be worth clarifying from Jeff now? Has anything arisen in terms of Concom's preference in terms of sequencing, or are they basically neutral on that issue? That would be important because it would go toward, you know, that would be another factor that you'd want to take into consideration if the commission had a position on it.
Okay, Jeff.
Sure, I'll try my best, and again, I'll summarize from comments that the board has made, and from materials presented. So I think as far as construction sequencing went, there's a couple criteria that the commission looks at. One of them is clearly imminent danger. That's kind of a requirement through the state and local wetlands protection bylaw and act. And looking at that and kind of defining what that is, the second draft of the order that will be discussed tomorrow looks a little bit more at fleshing that out further and identifying those areas that are in, I guess, what's perceived to be the greatest need by imminent danger. And then also looking at the materials provided. I think the direction of the board was clear in, you know, looking through the notices of intent and kind of the other documents that have been provided to the record. It had been apparent through the written materials that phase one was slated to be, reach one was slated to be first in kind of that presentation. And I think the commission has been very clear over time, especially given the kind of the history of the projects here, that they're really trying their best to make sure that all aspects of the project are properly memorialized, to be sure that expectations for all parties are very clear and what the project is supposed to look like. I think the commission's been pretty clear to make sure that there's no guesswork from any party involved, whether it's the public, the applicants, or the commission, that everything is outlined very clearly, and that there's a process if that needs to be changed, that they can come back to amend or modify that permit. But I think that's the direction that they have been pushing for, and I think that's why the original draft order was slated up that Reach 1 was to be constructed first, because that's what was provided in the materials.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm going to take a comment from Emily.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Emily Molden, Executive Director for the Nantucket Land and Water Council. I just wanted to make a couple of comments and raise another concern. So it's pretty clear, I think, from Vince's presentation, which was excellent, by the way, that certain segments or reaches of the project contain public infrastructure and homes that are at greater risk than others. And in Reach 1, in that northern area, a majority of the properties do qualify as being in imminent danger. I believe in Reach 3, there may be one or two that do qualify. And I believe that one of the last letters that the town received from DEP back in 2022 actually recognized that much of the area that's found within Reach 3 did not at that time qualify as being within imminent danger. So I do think that it's important for the town to continue to prioritize Reach 1. In addition, the concern that's been raised about sequencing, I think, brings to light some additional questions that Vince touched on, largely around funding in the near and long term, that I do think it's important for the select board to be asking and considering. One is simply where the funding is coming from, as we heard from Vince in the previous MOU between the town and SBPF and the notice of intent documents, that has always been identified as being private. And is that still the case? And is there and will there be enough funding for the entirety of at least phase 1 as it's proposed? It seems that there is currently money at the ready for Reach 3, but not necessarily for Reach 1. So again, just to reiterate the concern that if Reach 2 and 3 are completed first, is there a guarantee that either the funding won't run out or SBPF won't walk away from that portion of the project, leaving the town with the cost and certainly the risk? The other concern that I just wanted to raise, that I imagine the Conservation Commission will also be considering, is just that sequencing is important for other reasons as well. If Reach 2 and Reach 3 are completed first and not properly managed or maintained with mitigation sand, the addition of those structures is going to put adjacent areas at greater risk if they're not appropriately managed and maintained. So that could actually add to the risk of the area immediately to the north, which is Reach 1, if that's not addressed as a priority. So I just wanted to add those, and certainly we believe that a permit should be conditioned to prioritize Reach 1 if a permit is issued. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. I want to follow up because I think I heard Ms. Moldenhauer say that funding for Reach 1 would be secured from other sources than the homeowners, and I'm curious what concepts there are for fundraising for that, and the likelihood of that. I think the concern I have is exactly the one that several people have identified, including Ms. Molden, that the completion of 2 and 3 and the insecurity of funding for 1 leaves me very concerned about approving this change. So if you could answer the question about what your projected funding sources are for Reach 1.
So thank you so much. We've always said, and it's in our NOI and it's been in communication, that Reach 1 would need separate and additional funding beyond the homeowners. It's always been something that was transparent about. We have identified that it would most likely be other philanthropic organizations. There are many organizations in and community groups that are within the town as well as the Sconset community. They have their own structure and process that take time to review and go through in order to obtain that timing. What we are asking is that we not delay the momentum and the progress of reaches 2 and 3 in order for us to go through that process and obtain that funding. We are confident that we will be able to obtain the funding for Reach 1. We are here today. We've been going through, we've been sitting in meetings for years now. We are saying that we feel as though we can do it. What we really are asking is for the ability to have that momentum, to be able to show the community, to show these groups that they don't just have a blank order, but they actually see progress and can see the construction of reaches 2 and 3 going forward in order to gain that support for Reach 1. We've heard tonight, this is a policy question of allowing your partner, the private group that is coming up with the funding, to be able to figure out how we feel we can best obtain that. All of the reaches are legally required to be proven to have imminent danger. So for anyone to say that one has more imminent danger, and that's not up to the select board, it's actually up to the Concom, and they have not voted yet. We have obviously presented evidence. We believe that the town, you as our partner select board, believe that all reaches satisfy that standard of imminent danger, and that's been part of our record. The question is, how do we fund this? If we were to ask for a building permit to build a house with a carriage house and a pool, and the homeowners, SBPF is the group here that is bringing the private funding to this private public partnership, have money that say, hey, we want to build, this one element first, and we want to go and fundraise for the other. That's what we're trying to say. We're saying, look, this is what we think is the best process. We are being transparent with you as our partner, and we are asking for you to give us that flexibility to work through this. We still have, obviously, the MOU and the licensing process to finalize it. We don't know what the Concom will do. They're the ones that will make a final decision on the conditions. But we're asking you as our partner to say, let's go to them together and say, let's see if we can come up with this flexibility and tie, Reach 1, as it always has been, with completing all 3 of those Reach 1, 2, and 3, phase 1. And we are happy to identify additional timing constraints or coming back to you on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board?
I'll comment. I supported the MOU originally, partly because Reach 1 was being done first. And if all of a sudden we're changing our mind, I think this is going to just get eaten alive at town meeting. So, I also don't want to do something that might go against what the Concom's going to do, because we've already been there and that didn't end well. And so I think we should wait to Concom's tomorrow. Let's wait to see what they determine. It would be one possibility. And then I think, we should be, staff should come back, or with how we're going to, staff or legal, someone should come back with how we can be assured this is going to happen. How can this be done in a way that, either it's bonded or it's, I don't know. That's where we need someone beyond my, I'm not a lawyer, but come back so that there's some guarantee. I think part of the problem we're having tonight, and this happens sometimes on these big ones, is we're trying to do a lot of stuff that should be done and coming to us. And I'm not beating up on anyone. Vince has done a great job. I know how hard everyone's working, but I think we're right now doing just doing more than we should be doing on a Wednesday night in front of the camera in a short period of time. And I think if we make a decision tonight, it's probably not going to be a good one. So anyway.
I'm going to go to Dawn and then Malcolm.
I was just going to say, my impression of this, and maybe I'm incorrect, is that they were asking us for the flexibility to not fall under our policy. The Reach 1 has to be built before anything else can start, but for us to allow Concom the flexibility, which actually makes me a lot more comfortable if Concom decides how they want to phase it.
Vince?
If I can clarify for Dawn, please. SBPF and the town are co-applicants and partners on this project. And this is about how we approach the conversation between ourselves as co-applicants to go back to the Conservation Commission. And there's a conflict between the parties. In some ways, they want to change a policy about the maximizing risk to the town, changing the risk to the town, potentially increasing risk to the town when the brief is to reduce risk to the town. That's the conflict in this. And the question is, do we go and just drop this and ask SBPF to drop this too and say, look, let Concom decide. And if Concom decides, they could well say reach one first, because it's in the NOI. And then we've let the commission make the decision. But I prefer to go to the commission with some kind of brief or united front from the select board to be able to say that if we're saying to take out that one sentence, that the select board is okay with it. And if you're not okay with changing risk and you want to reduce risk to the town, then we discuss with SBPF how we can do this in a more reasonable way. But effectively, this is only a discussion between co-applicants.
Okay.
No.
Can I
You want
just
to follow up?
finish? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wasn't done. I mean, I think that I would be comfortable allowing some flexibility in the way it's constructed if there was a a little bit more of a timeline guarantee. That if 3 is started, 1 has to be completed within, I don't know, 6 months beyond it or something like that. I mean, I would look to Concom's advisement on that, and someone who has a little bit more expertise than I do. But I don't want us being so stringent or anyone being so stringent on how this all gets put into place that the whole thing is scrapped after all of this work.
Malcolm?
Madam Chair, I disagree with my esteemed colleague here. I think we should make a decision. The original sequence in the NOI was based on what was best for the town, and that is our responsibility. And I think our professional here has certainly suggested that he believes it's best for the town that we go in the sequence as stated. And Emily made a great case. If 2 and 3 go first, it actually may damage the probability of 1. That's just the way it is. I see, and I have not heard anybody tonight give me any information to tell me we should do anything different. And I'm also quite upset the fact that we're even here doing this. Here we are now, and now, why isn't this concept, we've always said we've had to find the money. Well, we've always said, but we're at the point where they should have said, if we don't have the money, we can't do it, or this and that. We haven't heard where they're going to get the money. You've all said it. I'm rambling on, I'm sorry. But I think we should keep it the way it is. That's my opinion. We don't have to discuss it anymore.
Okay, thanks, Malcolm. Any other questions from the board? Any other input at this point? The decision before us is to whether to allow for a change in the order of the NOI, to allow for a change in the order of construction of the reaches, correct? The pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, I would just briefly say that I agree with my colleagues who have said that I think that we should go with Vince's recommendation, that there isn't enough of a case here to be made to change this midstream. And I feel like this should have come to us a year ago or something, when Concom is set to do deliberations already. And it just seems a little missequenced.
This is a negotiation that should have been worked out with us and SBPF prior. Not doing this on a Wednesday night again is crazy. And so I think that, I think going forward, again, this isn't just a money thing. This is a political thing. We have to have something that we can go to town meeting and say, this is why we did it. This is why it's so great. here's how it's going to be paid for, I feel like we're just negotiating against ourselves. And we're almost guaranteeing it won't happen. So I think it would hurt us and it would hurt SBPF because 2 and 3 won't happen if we adopt this tonight, what they've asking us to do tonight. And that doesn't mean that there isn't more work that can be done or that we shouldn't be looking at it, but I think it would be a mistake tonight.
Okay. Vince, last thought?
Yes, last thought, and to clarify from Matt's point, this was negotiated, this was agreed several times over, and they're asking for a change 8 months into a CONCOM process.
Yeah. I'm also concerned about the pattern of changing, requesting changes. If you're prepared to make a motion.
I make a motion that we do not change the original wording in the NOI.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any final thoughts or? Okay, all those in favor of Malcolm's motion to leave the NOI as is, to make no change? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so,
I'll just abstain. I
okay,
didn't vote
so
either way.
4-0 with an abstention from Dawn. Okay. As a final comment, I think if this request had come with a proposal on how to obligate SBPF to complete Reach 1, it might have had a different hearing tonight. But I think a blanket request without any legal obligation to complete Reach 1, for me, that made it a non-starter. So we'll move on. Okay, request for select board approval for signature on a notice of intent for Coir Terrace Maintenance Project at 59 to 83 Baxter Road. Vince, are you on this again? No. Okay.
I have a question for Vince.
Okay.
Sorry, just to clarify, I don't work on this. I do track this project as it relates to the GO2 project only. I don't work on this one.
Okay.
I just know where it stands.
Okay. Who's taking the lead on this, Libby?
Probably myself and George could.
Okay.
This has admittedly been a little bit confusing because information has been not readily available up front, evidently. So when this originally came to my desk, the request was that this project was a maintenance project, and part of it is on town property. And so the request was for the town's representative to sign the notice of intent for it. So I consulted with Natural Resources and Town Council about it, and as I typically would with something like this, and bring it to the board to authorize town manager to sign. And there is the matter of the town code, which requires a town meeting vote if a project is going to be placed on town property. So initially, it was determined that the project would require the town meeting vote. SBPF's attorney got in touch with us and expressed a different opinion about that with some detail about the project. We reviewed that and determined that, okay, it is a maintenance project, not requiring a town meeting vote. However, then I guess some additional information came in that the project actually is not considered a maintenance project, but more of a replacement/new project. And it's my understanding that Natural Resources consulted with the Department of Environmental Protection about that. We reconsulted with Town Council and determined that because it's essentially a replacement or new project, it would require a town meeting vote. So we are not happy with the unclear direction from the get-go, but that's how sometimes these things go. So at this point, it's the position of, I believe, Town Council and myself and the Natural Resources Director, that the board could authorize the town manager to sign the notice of intent on behalf of the town. However, work wouldn't be able to proceed without a town meeting vote. And George or Jeff, feel free to elaborate or correct me on any of that.
George?
I can go first if you want, Jeff. Basically, I have nothing to add to the board other than Libby's recitation of the history on this. The one thing I'll point out, though, is there's no existing license that I know of or that I've seen for this particular project or project area in terms of town-owned land. So regardless of whether it's a replacement project or a maintenance project, it sort of misses the point. Ultimately, if town-owned coastal land is involved, this doesn't involve the moratorium under the town code. It involves the requirement of seeking town meeting approval for work on the town-owned portion of the coastal beach. So my opinion to Libby, and it's my opinion to the board, is the board would be able, if it's a sound project, which it sounds like it is because it's the result of an emergency certification issued by the commission. This is one of those after the fact notices of intent to follow up and get approval for the project that was an emergency project. So it sounds like a good project, worthy of support. You can sign off on the notice of intent if you want to authorize Libby to do that. But what I had recommended is that she specifically, note on that authorization that town meeting approval would be required in the event of approval, and then, of a proposed license for the use of town-owned land in the project area. So what I recommended was SBPF, provide that document at some point in the process to the select board, being a proposed license with a plan, attached plan depicting the town-owned land in this project area. Then in the event of approval by the commission, that the board does seek town meeting approval of that license for the town-owned land in the project area.
Okay. Jeff, did you want to add anything from the town's perspective before I go to Meredith?
No, I think George and Libby encapsulated everything pretty well.
Okay, Meredith, did you want
to? Thank you so much, Chairwoman. So yes, on behalf of SBPF, as indicated earlier, Chip Nyland, our attorney, had raised his hand asking if he could be present to talk about this, but had to leave to go to another meeting. So I'm trying to fill in here as he's not present, and we were not aware that obviously your town council would be opining on this issue. I would say that one, we'd obviously very much appreciate if the town is able to, or the select board is able to authorize Libby to sign the letter of intent to move forward on this emergency order as indicated. We would ask, however, that since we had received a response a couple weeks ago with one position and then now a change today with a different position and our council is not able to be present, that we potentially put on hold any discussions on the question of the town meeting, as we are also aware that the Concom has not decided yet as to whether this application is a CES. If they determine that it's not a CES, we've actually presented on both aspects of it, whether that it could potentially be approved not as a CES or as a CES. The town meeting would only be required if the Concom determines that this is a CES. So I would just ask that if you could potentially authorize the letter of intent on town property, that we hold any issue on town meeting. We can obviously go to the Concom, let them make their decision. If they determine that it's not, then obviously the town meeting issue, to my understanding, and please, Councilmember Pucci, clarify this if I'm saying something wrong, is no longer an issue. If they do determine that it is a CES, then obviously we can come back and with our attorney present, kind of have that discussion at the greater issue. And no matter what, obviously, if this does require town meeting, we would, as indicated by your town council, provide all the required documentation showing what portion is on town land and what portion is not. We would obviously comply with that. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Jeff, my understanding is that DEP has been consulted on this question and advised on this, which contributed to town council's perspective on this. Can you just?
Sure, no, I'm happy to. So just for 60 seconds of background, this was a project that was originally permitted back in the mid 2000s, right around 2004, for some core protection, some core terraces that were through there. And those were maintained with the order. I can't speak to the, license being present or not. That's not something that we generally track. But what happened is during these winter months, that structure was destroyed in some storms, and was applied to be put back through emergency certification. And that's when we reached out to DEP, just to make sure that we were consistent with how DEP was dealing with similar issues kind of across the Commonwealth, to make sure we weren't doing anything inconsistent, and talking to our local regional kind of circuit provider. They confirmed that due to the fact that the order was long since expired in time, and due to the nature of, kind of complete reconstruction of large portions of this, that they felt that it needed a new order of conditions to be normalized. And that's what prompted the notice of intent. To their credit, SBPF filed the notice of intent within the correct and proper timeframe. And then, as we always do with all notices, in doing just the review, flag that there, obviously is a property owner signature required. And that's when we notified them that they needed to get the town to sign off on the application if it was going to continue going forward and be, further deliberated. And that's what brings us here today.
Okay. Questions or comments from the board?
I have a comment, a question for Vince, but
Okay. Okay. So what I'm hearing is advice from town council that this is a new application of sorts that would require a license from town meeting. That is the advice we're getting from town council. But that determination is ultimately made by Conservation Commission? Is that, that's what I'm hearing from.
I should interject on that. I'm not saying that the signing off on the notice of intent requires town meeting approval, but I'm saying that there should be a reservation on the authorization that work in the town, work pursuant to a license on the town-owned portion is subject to town meeting approval. Some type of language that I can provide to Libby that she puts an asterisk on her signature and adds a sentence to that with the reservation. It really doesn't, on the issue of, whether it's a project subject to the town code at all, we're happy to discuss further with SBPF. I don't even think that needs to come before you. If you want to authorize, the town manager to sign off subject to the reservation that I'm recommending, I'm happy to hear anything further that SBPF has to say on the topic. But it looks to me right now that regardless of how you look at the project, it's going to be some type of coastal engineering structure, protection, whatever you want to call it, that if you're using town-owned land, it would behoove the board to seek town meeting authorization to enter into that license. So that, that may be the first time that SBPF is hearing that. And I think that maybe the confusion came in about this issue of whether it's a maintenance project or a new project. The fact is, the town code provision concerning town meeting approval of licenses for town-owned land is an independent provision, and it applies regardless of how you look at the project, whether it's maintenance or replacement. So, if the board can vote on it that way, I'm happy to work with Libby further on it.
Okay, thank you. Does that clarify for everybody? Pleasure of the board at the moment.
I don't have an issue with Libby signing it with, the lawyers working it out on the town meeting part.
Okay. Okay, so subject to the reservation.
Yes.
That's
that-
George.
yes.
Okay, all right. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Okay. Thank you. Where are we next?
I'm going to say good night, Brooke. I think you're done with me for the night.
Okay,
Good evening. Thank you.
okay. Select Board Strategic Plan Update, Efficient Government Focus Area. Rick?
Good evening. Tonight's presentation is on effective and efficient town government, and Tom is our Select Board liaison, and on the team are Amanda Perry, Drew Patnode, Mike Alvarez, and myself. This presentation kind of falls in the middle of our departmental updates and some project updates. So we have the HR departmental update coming up. We have the new DPW project presentation coming up in the next few weeks, the new OIH, you get your updates. We just had the IT departmental update recently. So a lot of that material you're going to get a much deeper dive on, or have just recently had. And so I think we're going to try and go through this pretty quickly tonight. I'm sure that's okay at this late hour.
Efficiently.
Yes, efficiently, but effectively. And we're just going to take them in the order that they were articulated in the Select Board strategic plan. So there's going to be a little bit of microphone swapping going back and forth, but we're all sitting pretty close to the microphone. So Erica, if you could go to the next page, please. I'm not going to read the aspirational statement. It talks about the value, how we value fiscal responsibility, how governance is collaborative, that town employees are vital to the functioning of the town, and we need to invest in modern technology and efficient design of our facilities in order to leverage the town employees, and that the town is committed to planning for a resilient and sustainable community, including maintaining municipal infrastructure. Erica, please. And so the 5 goals under effective town government are to support the experience of the municipal workforce, and that includes things like building a central municipal facility, maybe a new DPW facility. It also explicitly states employee housing, but we have moved that portion to Christie, the housing focus areas, and you heard about that earlier tonight. Second goal is to continue to evaluate total compensation to support recruitment and retention. Third is to make strategic investments in municipal facilities in alignment with the facilities maintenance plan. Fourth, continue to invest in technology and cybersecurity. And then finally, increase the diversity of municipal boards and streamline the onboarding and orientation process. Eric, if you could go to the next page, please. So we're going to step through these goals, and whoever owns the strategy underneath the goal will just come to the mic and talk about it. So the first goal is to support the experience of the municipal workforce. And the first strategy under that goal is to build a new DPW facility. And I will turn it over to Drew for that. You're also going to hear after that from Amanda about improving programs to improve employee morale. And you're going to be.
Thanks, Rick. As Rick mentioned, goal 1, strategy 1 would be to build a new DPW facility in a logistically efficient and resilient location. I'll try to get through this fairly quickly because we do intend, we have tentatively scheduled for September 11th, a much more in-depth review of the DPW project to date. Just like the Our Island Home did recently, an update for the board. We've also completed our schematic design for the new facility at 1 Shadbush Road. Additionally, just want to highlight, we've been doing weekly meetings with the Nantucket Hunting Association's shooting range committee representatives since March, and those have been very fruitful. As far as successes to date, we as part of the process, we did an extensive analysis of the DPW programming, and this is really the part I would like to highlight the most. We thoroughly enjoyed this process. It was really introspective to look at our program, our staff, our responsibilities, and then everything, our stuff too, industrial equipment, vehicles, heavy equipment, but not only for today and where we are now, but we're building a facility for 50, 60, 70 years of use. So where do we expect the facility to be? How can it grow? And out of that, we're very proud of the adjacencies that were thoughtfully considered for optimal efficiency and safety, not only in the building, who sits next to who, how big the spaces are, but from an office and an employee facility standpoint, but shops and the central fleet garage, but also around the building, the site itself, where the fuel island is, where the salt shed is, and circulation with all of that in mind. So just want to highlight some challenges. So obviously we need to secure additional funding for design development and bidding. And then a second phase of that would be the construction of the new facility. So we expect to have those on the 2025 annual and special town meeting warrants. Erica, you can go to the next slide. As far as the critical path for this project, it's all related to permitting through natural heritage and MIPA. Those conversations have already begun. And as a part of that, we do need a resolution on the ongoing discussions with the Hunting Association to move both projects forward jointly. As far as action steps, we do have a preliminary kind of informal review of building elevations by HDC next Thursday. It's definitely a little early in the process, but similar again to the Our Island Home project, we would like to get their feedback sooner than later. We'll then do complete energy assessments in keeping with the stretch energy code and life cycle cost analysis for the interior systems. And then another big component is identifying and quantifying potential grant opportunities through the Inflation Reduction Act and Mass Save to help pay for the project. And this obviously also aligns with the Select Board strategic plan focus area of environmental leadership. And Erica, I'll leave you guys with this last slide, which is a visual the concept of the front of the building. This is from the southeast portion of the DPW site, facing northwest, kind of back towards the VFW. In this view, off the screen on the right would be located adjacent to the DPW, the Nantucket Hunting Association's shooting range. So I think Amanda is up next.
Thank you, Drew. Amanda Perry, HR Director. Strategy number 2 is to develop programs to improve employee morale, inclusion, leadership, and equity. And I wanted to talk about a few of our successes to date. One is professional development and training. We have offered both technical and managerial training in fiscal 24, such as how to avoid burnout at work, software training on like our accounting and payroll systems, leadership training to managers, and also ethics compliance. Just recently, we concluded safety training that was led by our police department with Officer Cassie Thompson. She did building evacuation and active attacker training for a lot of our employees. The monthly department updates, Rick talked a little bit about that. That is a way to get our department heads before you and have some public speaking experience, and also bring our deputies and senior managers to also present what we're working on in all of our departments. I'll talk a little bit about employee appreciation in the next slide. Cabinet retreats. So every year we try to bring all of the department heads together for an annual retreat. This would involve like a day-long event, and we'd have like a speaker engagement and a specific topic that we talk about. Internal morale and leadership group. This internal group comes together to brainstorm training opportunities and plan for employee appreciation events. This group would also review policies such as like the hybrid work policy to try to help improve morale and our recruitment initiatives for key position turnover. The Internal Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee is a committee that meets to advance the initiatives of the DEI strategic plan and also explores specific training for DEI-related topics. On this slide here, I wanted to talk about our employee appreciation event from last year. Last year in 2023, we delivered 54 pins to employees with years of service from 5 to 35 years. At the event, we asked employees to come and bring a donation to the food pantry, as well as a donation for the island home. The residents provided a list of things that they needed, and so we had a giving tree, and each employee took an ornament from the tree and made a donation to the island home. Also at the event, those that get a pin also get a certificate, and each department head talks a little bit about each of the employees who are being recognized that night. Next slide. These are some of the key positions that we filled in fiscal '24. These 12 positions are identified as key positions based on criticality of the position within the strategic plan, safety-sensitive functions, and/or they're leading a division or department within the town. So of the positions listed above, I just wanted to highlight that 4 of these hires were placed in housing at time of hire. It was critical that they had housing in order to start employment with the town. 5 of these positions above were filled with candidates who already worked for the town. And then the remaining 7 were external candidates who joined the town for the first time. There are also other key positions that remain open, but these are just our successes for fiscal '24.
Okay, so the third strategy for the first goal is one that we added kind of late, and it's about developing programming and design for the new OIH. And we added it because, one, the project is just so important and so enormous, but also it will serve to support the experience of municipal workforce. We have 60 staff members at OIH, and a new OIH would be a really nice place to work and hopefully help with recruitment and retention. But just on the project itself, so the status is essentially at this point in time, we're planning to seek approval for construction funding at the 2025 ATM. I would say the project has moved along really nicely, both with help from our OPM, Vertex, and our architect and engineer firm, SMRT. We've already selected the construction manager at risk. We have a preliminary cost estimate. We've engaged consulting resources around kitchen equipment, medical equipment, technology. We have a technology consultant, a passive house consultant, and we have resources in place to help us with energy rebates and other associated grants. And we've made design decisions around floor plans, the basement configuration, geothermal, solar. Those are all decisions that are pretty baked in at this point in time. We continue to negotiate with Sherburne Commons around the location of the building, the size, employee housing. We've been meeting with them pretty frequently lately. I think tomorrow will be our 3rd meeting in the last 10 days. The Sherburne Commons employee housing is on the critical path along with the ATM. We will really want to make sure that the disturbance to any Sherburne Commons employee with respect to housing, which will probably have to be moved, will be minimized. We have done a lot of public outreach, and we're going to continue to do some more. We're beginning to develop collateral information, information for the public in different sorts of mediums and channels. And we've just a couple other things that we need to get around. Borrowing restrictions. Brian has come upon a few parts of the program that may have some borrowing restrictions against them. And then we need to complete the construction documents in the next couple of months. And if we get all that done, we're hoping we could potentially start construction in July of '25 and finish by Christmas of '27. Eric, if you could just go to the next slide. This is the bird's eye perspective. You can see it. It's 4 wings. 3 of the 4 wings have residences in them. You can see a couple of generous courtyards there. You see the solar on all the inward-facing roofs, and then the buffers and the parking, and that's South Shore Road at the top of the picture. So I'm going to hand it back to Amanda to talk about our efforts to evaluate total compensation and support recruitment and retention. I just want to say something because she's probably not going to say it herself, but in FY 2024, the HR department brought on 67 new employees, and that is, when you think about the amount of work that goes into that, from job descriptions, job postings, job or initial evaluation of candidates, first interviews, second interviews, job offers. That's just an incredible number. She probably won't say it herself, so I'm going to say it for her before she gets up here.
So goal number 2 is to continue to evaluate total compensation to support recruitment and retention efforts. And when I say total compensation, we look at not only base wages, but also the value of the benefits provided by the town, such as 90% employer-paid health insurance. And now we're also looking at employer-provided housing and the benefit that that's providing. When we look at the refresh for the comp and class study, we look at the Consumer Price Index, which involves private employers, not just municipal employers. And we also are collecting data throughout the year. There are other municipalities across the Commonwealth that are doing comp and class studies. We provide our data, in return we get their data. So throughout the year, I'm gathering that information. Strategy number 1. So complete the refresh of the class and comp study. So I talked a little bit about the data collection. The next piece of that is when we have turnover in a position, we always review the job description. So the position classification and job descriptions are always reviewed when there's turnover. We do have a large amount of individual position titles and few positions that have one title that covers multiple jobs. So for example, like a DPW laborer job title covers multiple individuals, whereas a position which you would think would be an individual, but it's not, office manager, actually has multiple different job descriptions because an office manager at the DPW is not exactly the same as the office manager at like the health department. So I consider those unique titles. On the next slide, I'll talk about the components of when we look at a job description for reclassification or consideration within their pay bands. There are 8 compensable factors, and this is a table that we got from the Siegel Group. So each of those tools has a numerical weight that we use to determine a classification band. And Rick did touch on this fiscal year. We had a total of 67 employees that could be current employees who sought promotion and had a change in their position, or new hires that we promoted through our NeoGov software, which is our onboarding and recruitment software. Of those 67 individuals, the average salary was $82,884. And that's based on a 40-hour work week. So to put that in a bit more perspective, there were about 391 funded positions that we were tracking across all town departments, excluding the school, in fiscal 24. So 67 employees is roughly 17% of the total funded positions. Next slide. Strategy 2, establish initiatives designed to recruit and retain. A few of our successes to date, I just wanted to highlight the returning seasonal staff we have across the town. So in 2024, we hired roughly 163 seasonal employees, and the departments with the highest percentage of returning staff are the Culture and Tourism Office and Natural Resources, with 80% of their seasonal staff returning for a second year or greater. Next was the Marine Department, and they had about 60% returning staff for Assistant Harbor Master positions and dock staff positions.
Excuse me, I know it's been a long evening, but if you guys could hold the side conversation so we can.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
She has to catch the vote.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Annually, the town participates in the high school job fair, and this year we had 5 tables representing police, fire, sewer, culture and tourism, and island home. We are also collaborating with the Boys and Girls Club, and we have a partnership that brings children from the Boys and Girls Club on field trips to various town departments throughout the year. Each field trip, they do a tour, a presentation of the operation of each department, and the focus is on science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Our office has made a significant investment in technology to start to gather the data to track employee recruitment and retention initiatives and to make it easier for applicants to find and apply for our jobs. Housing is a critical hurdle for applicants looking to relocate to Nantucket. We work closely with Christy and the housing office when it comes to finding placement for key positions and candidates who are moving here from off-island. Just another strategy that we have used to try to retain staff is when we have someone who's retiring, they have the ability to stay on for 1,200 hours a year, and they have a lot of institutional knowledge. So in some cases, that's really a valuable tool for us to help with the transition of a key position. This slide, I broke down the turnover by department so you can see kind of across the board where our highest turnover is. Just keep in mind that the DEI and stormwater only have one position, so it's 100% because we only had one position and that position turned over. But just to put in perspective across the town what it looks like.
So goal number 3 is to continue to make strategic investments in municipal facilities in alignment with the facilities master plan. Eric, you can go to the next slide. To give you a little bit of history, there was a 2015 study done, assessment of facilities townwide. And I've worked very closely with Rick and my Deputy Director of Facilities, Paul Berard, to identify a roadmap for constructing improvements at various town-owned buildings and facilities. And it's kind of a 4-stage or 4-phase approach. And phase 1 is essentially a systematic update of that facilities assessment. That would include an update of conditions assessments at buildings that were included in the report and also buildings that were not, either omitted at the time or acquired by the town since. Phase 2 would essentially be design, bid, and construction of building envelope and really exterior improvements. Phase 2 would be design, bid, and construction of systems improvements, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, interior stuff. And then finally, phase 4 would be design, bid, and construction of interior improvements. And that's also evaluating the configurations of spaces at various town buildings, depending on their uses, and finishes and any other remediation that needs to be accomplished. Right now, we're in the process of drafting an RFQ for designer services. The goal of this is efficiency in assessing, design, bidding, and constructing improvements at 40+ town properties. So for us, we've talked at length about the need to do multiple roofs and not doing them as individual projects, and the same with siding and windows, et cetera. So our approach is essentially bundle all that into the phase 1 assessments and phase 2 improvements. Also, it's an opportunity for us to establish standardized specifications during that assessment and design phases for use throughout town facilities, so that, especially for us internally, the facilities group at the DPW, and our vendors and other town departments, being able to maintain and manage the buildings long-term, having uniformity and kind of consistency across the board is something that we seek to achieve. And I think that down the road, we'll be very happy that we did. We've talked at length about our approach of working from the exterior to the interior to achieve appropriate sequencing when we're doing the work. And ultimately, the bottom line goal is to improve energy efficiency, comfort, safety, security, and lessen future maintenance costs at a large number of individual structures that the town owns. Go to the next slide. On the left, might be a little hard to see, but at the top is a couple projects that are either underway right now or already completed, including the exterior improvements of the 16 Broad Street town building, 2 Fairgrounds HVAC energy improvement project. Could have moved these up to the green, but 25 Federal Street building exterior and windows improvements, and then the jetty storage building, which is under construction as we speak. Below that, you can see there's also 2 phases of municipal restroom improvements, and then the 4-phased approach to the rest of the municipal facilities. On the right is kind of a more or less comprehensive list of the properties that were not included in the 2015 LLB facilities assessment report and the maintenance plan. A large number of those are employee housing units, which obviously it's a great thing that they're growing, but they're facilities or structures that we need to fold into our maintenance plan going forward. Go to the next slide. And then lastly, some challenges is establishing a funding source. A couple of years ago, $6.5 million was appropriated for various municipal facilities projects. We're working on using this year's capital program committee as an opportunity to update Capcom on what's been done, what's being planned, and where we expect to be over the next couple of years. Another challenge is going to be disruptions during construction. We're talking about doing a lot of work at different residences and offices where it's difficult or impossible to displace people. So finding a way to do it where obviously we can't shut downtown buildings for months on end while we're doing this work, and we don't want to displace people from their primary residences. As far as the critical path right now, it's engaging the consultant for this phased multi-year project, identifying needs and developing reliable cost estimates for phases 2 through 4, the actual construction work, and then permitting for the exterior improvements in phase 2. As far as action steps, this is a big one for us, is engaging various departments and town employees to understand the uses of their spaces, the deficiencies and needs of each building and space prior to, or as part of the design and prior to construction. Obviously, nobody knows, the ins and outs of the buildings or employee housing units than the people that work and live in them every day. We will be sure to continue coordination throughout construction with those affected by the disruptions, and then when it's go time, commence the program of sustainable improvements. And this also aligns with the Select Board strategic plan focus area of housing and environmental leadership. Go to the next slide. And I'll pass it over to Mike Alvarez.
Hi there, Mike Alvarez, Chief Technology Officer. I was just in front of you guys a couple weeks ago, so we'll keep this quick. Our fourth goal is centered on continuing investment in technology and cybersecurity. This is a critical area for the town and county of Nantucket, ensuring that we not only keep pace with technology advancements, but also protect our digital assets from ever-evolving cyber threats. We can go on to the next slide. A couple of notes here. Reliable and secure access to information and technology services. We're committed to providing our employees and public with reliable and secure ways to access information and technology services as needed. This means ensuring that our systems are consistently available, user-friendly, and fortified against unauthorized access. This strategy involves assessing current access methods, identifying any weak points, and implementing solutions that enhance security without compromising convenience. Move on to the next slide. The next step of maintaining and improving network infrastructure, we're looking to support advanced technology services. Our network infrastructure must be robust and scalable. We're focused on upgrading our network hardware and software to accommodate increasing demand and emerging technologies. Improving infrastructure is not just about speed and capacity, but it's also about creating a resilient network that can withstand potential disruptions and continue to operate under various conditions. An example of this is the upcoming DPW wireless expansion at the current campus. We have a mock-up here kind of showing some of the expected coverage range provided by the new antennas. This is just phase 1 of this project, and of course, should DPW get a new facility, these items will be available as part of the outdoor campus for whomever moves into that facility space next. And we can go to my last slide. As cybersecurity threats become more sophisticated, it's essential that our cybersecurity measures evolve to meet these challenges. Protecting our digital assets is a top priority, and we're implementing advanced security protocols, regular audits, and continuous monitoring to safeguard against potential breaches. This also includes educating staff on cybersecurity best practices and preparing for rapid response to any incidents that may arise, minimizing the impact of our operations and services. We're currently working with Nantucket Public Schools to increase their cybersecurity posture and implement some training for their staff in time for this upcoming school year. So just a quick little conclusion, prioritizing these strategies, we aim to create a technology environment that is not only efficient and effective, but also secure and resilient. These investments are essential to ensuring the continuity of operations and safety of our digital resources. Thank you for your time, and I'll hand it back over to Rick.
Okay, final one, wrap this up. The last goal is to increase the diversity of municipal boards, committees, and commissions and streamline the onboarding and orientation process. And the update here is that we really haven't gotten to this one just yet. We really just don't have the staff to get at it. And so I think we've made some small improvements in the onboarding process, but we are going to need to spend some more time with the select board to determine just how we want to go about increasing the diversity of boards, committees, and commissions, in as much as you are the appointing authority for most of those. So with that, those are the 5 goals, and that would conclude this presentation. If there's any questions.
Thanks, Rick. Any comments or questions? We're getting late. Okay. Florencia, review of town meeting survey results.
Hi, good evening, members of the select board. Promise that I will be very fast. It's just 12 slides. So a month after the 2024 annual town meeting and following a brainstorming session that we had with town administration, the town clerk, the madam moderator, and others, the communications office launched a post-annual town meeting feedback survey. We were hoping to gather insight from residents, and I hope that you find the information that we collected valuable for future town meetings. So this was a digital survey that ran for 19 days from June 1st to June 20th, and we collected 437 total responses from 437 people responded to the survey with 2,925 unique responses. All the responses, all the questions were just optional, which means that people might have taken some of the questions and left other blank. And so 437 responses might not seem a very large number. It is actually, considering the total population that we have and how for how many weeks we ran the survey. We use digital ads in social media to power the survey. We promoted it via our local news, the town newsletter. It was available in the town's website as well. So it was very well distributed, and we're pretty happy with the number that we got. So you can move to the next slide. So first question was, did you attend or did you not attend? The big majority of the people that took the survey did attend, but we collected 32% of the responses that did not, and they had follow-up questions as to why they chose not to attend. So next slide, Erica. Second question was, did you attend day 1, day 2, and day 3? I guess that we are not surprised, since we were all there, that the majority of the people attended day 1. And day 2 and day 3, we got pretty much similar numbers as to respondents of the survey. Next slide. So we wanted to know if people were informed going into the meeting and where they collected information from. So as you can see, the options were quite a few, and most of the people that responded to this question gather information from local news, but also from boards and commission meetings and different towns' communication channels. So 72% of, you can move to the next slide. 72% of the respondents were satisfied with the information that they had available going into the meeting, though we did receive some feedback that was negative, and it was either regarding the warrant as either being too lengthy or too complex, with some people finding its information either overwhelming or too confusing. So in this line, the different, so 2.72% as being positive meant the comment was fully positive. People were happy with the information that they had, and then it moves to mixed, where some of the words that they used might have been a little negative, and then neutral, pretty self-explanatory. It wasn't neither positive nor negative, and then a 13% regarding the information available was negative. And then here in the slide, you can see some of the words that were most used. Article 60 showed up, Article 59. It was, well, that's fine. So then we asked do you feel that you had enough information to vote on the articles? Again, a little bit over half of the respondents felt that they did have information. If they felt comfortable asking a question at the meeting, the majority of the people felt that they did not feel comfortable, or they were neutral towards this response, this question. So you can move to the next slide. And then these were open questions so people could make comments. The comments were many pretty lengthy, so we don't have them available. So this is an idea of what the comment sentiment was. About 40% of the comments regarding feedbacks or suggestions was negative, which means that people felt that either the meeting structure, changing amendments on the fly was mentioned many, many times. How the comments were managed was another comment that was that kept showing up throughout the responses. And question handling regarding technology and tools, that's what it means mostly. Nobody complained about e-voting, for example. So, and that's when it comes to people that participated. Then we have another question for those that did not attend and why they didn't. And it's, next slide, yeah. So of those that didn't attend, the comments were fairly similar to people that did attend as to how they felt about town meeting. The warrant being too lengthy or too complex, people not having enough time to dedicate to understanding it or to attending town meeting. And then some reasons that we've heard before, childcare being an issue, people not being available on that day, work conflicts, they don't like the format. So that is pretty much what we have that we can share with you regarding the survey. In the next slide, we have some idea. Well, this is again about not attendees and the reasons why they did not, which I previously mentioned. Again, meeting structure, accessibility, many ideas that are not viable. For example, remote participation, remote voting kept showing up. So I guess that is on the communications office and town administration to educate residents on what is actually possible and not. And Erica, you can move to the next slide. I don't think that we have much to add. So that is when it comes to the results of the surveys. And now we have some ideas that I would like you all to discuss either today, I know that it's very late, or at a future meeting. And Libby, but when it comes to the communications office, some things that we understand that we need to work on future town meetings is expanding our town meetings videos. Right now we've been doing for the past 5 years videos on capital articles. We are hoping to expand for our next annual town meeting, a 101 video series that goes more into detail as to town meeting basics, the structure, policies and procedures regarding town meeting. We will expand on the outreach that we're doing for the voters guide that is very valuable, and we hope that more people take advantage of it. And we are open to feedback and ideas that people might have. So they're more than welcome to email us to communications@nantucket-ma.gov with positive ideas. So that's a little bit of what we wanted to share.
Thank you, Florencia, for that.
Yes.
It is late. We were thinking about talking about some suggestions. Libby?
I was just going to say, a lot of these things are in the works, but there are some other suggestions that need a little more discussion with legal anyway and logistical stuff. So I think we're going to have some more internal discussion and bring some stuff back to you.
Great, thank you.
Just my quick thing, it was interesting to me that it was, almost 40%, 30-something percent say it's too long. Some of the stuff we can't fix, but, it's too long. And the other thing, just working with younger people now, their whole life is in this thing. And if it's not some of the stuff we're talking about doing, videos and things, if it's not a TikTok or a quick video, people expect instantaneous, and they expect, so they expect it instantaneous, and this has to be really simple. And I think part of what's happening with town meeting is it's not. It's an old form, and it's hard, and it changes, and I think, so we could try a lot of this, and it'd be great, but it's a different world. Anyway, sorry.
Madam Chair, there's also a lot of response.
I mean, it was, 400 people so that's 40% of a town meeting, roughly, or less, and there's a lot of response bias in a survey like that, so, we need to do better, but I have no idea how to do it better.
Yeah. Yes, and I think people have ideas that are just not legally permissible too, that keep coming up over and over and over again as potential solutions, and they are not potential solutions. And so, that's difficult for us as well. Thanks, Florencia. We are not going to do a monthly town manager report. And Gail and everyone who's stayed to the bitter end, thank you for staying to the bitter end. Next is the status update regarding Article 36. Erica, can you put up the framework and to the police chief also for sticking it out. Okay, so Article 36 was a non-binding article that asked for an appropriation for an independent African Meeting House vandalism investigation. And we are not able to hand over appropriations to citizens to conduct something like this. It's not permissible from a municipal finance. So the direction that we have taken is to put together a scope of work, which the town will engage an independent reviewer. And this document reflects the goals of what that process shall be. And so that is what is before the board tonight, to approve this scope of work. And I'll allow the article proponent, Ms. Holgate, to speak. Gail?
You would allow me to do what?
Did you want to, you're at the microphone, would you like to make a comment?
I would like to make a comment.
Okay, could you pull the mic down and just, for the record, identify yourself?
Could I do what?
Pull the mic down, Gail, so we can hear you.
I lost a couple of inches lately. Yes, so you've changed things, and I think our first question was, Barbara left me a note. She had to be excused. And which version of the Article 36 are we following? Because there was mine, and then something changed somewhere in there. And can you put all of what you've done on paperwork, and I'll be happy to come down and pick it up so that we know what's going on? Like you said to us, so could you repeat what you came up with again, please?
So in communications, my understanding is there was a misunderstanding from you about how this article would be implemented. And my understanding was that the expectation was that the town would provide funding to a community group.
We voted on that. 300 people voted on that.
Okay, so that is not permissible under municipal finance. We cannot, and the finance director can help explain this, but it is my understanding we don't allocate funding to private citizens to conduct town business. And so the alternative is for the town to develop a scope of work for an investigation and engage a firm to do that investigation. And that's the decision that was made based on legal counsel and finance director advice on what is permissible. The article that was passed at town meeting was non-binding. Therefore, it served as a recommendation to the select board to engage in a process of investigating or evaluating the investigation on the African Meeting House incident. This is our response to that non-binding request from the voters at town meeting, subject to limitations we have around municipal finance and what we're allowed to do. Does that help?
Let me repeat what I think I heard.
Okay.
So that you are not allowed, the town is not allowed to let someone from the outside do an investigation.
We are not allowed to write a check to a citizens group to do an investigation.
Do you have that anywhere?
It is we have a finance director who is responsible for determining how we can spend money, and that is not a way we can spend money. So we're doing our best within the limitations we have around what is permissible with municipal funding.
But I think there may be a misunderstanding, because it will be an independent review.
Right.
And it will be an independent review based on these, what is here.
Okay, so I didn't really hear you well, but you're saying that there is going to be another investigation.
Yes.
Yes, it will be an independent review.
Of the investigation,
Yes.
not a new investigation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
There's going to be an investigation of the investigation.
Yeah, there you go.
There's going to be
Yes, with an
review.
independent person, not with,
Right. Not internal. It will be
Someone from the outside.
absolutely. Yes. And there are firms that do this. That is their whole purpose. And we've worked closely with the police chief, who, in her experience before she came to Nantucket, has engaged.
I met with her. When she first came here. Clifford and I met with her.
You need to get closer to the mic, Gail, because the public can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Okay. If you can put that in writing for me.
What is it that you hope to have in writing? I'm not understanding.
Well, where are we going to get where are you getting the investigation from, the people from? Do you?
So this will go to procurement, and firms will be considered. They will be given this scope of work, and they will make proposals to do the work.
Outside people, somebody outside.
Independent of the town of Nantucket, 100%.
Okay, and the reason I'm questioning is because I did my own chatting with everybody that was in charge the first time, and when I called the state police, I called the police, I did everything that I should have done. And I called the police department, and the police department said, we handled that over to the Mass State Police. I called the Mass State Police. He couldn't have been ruder. And then they were done with it.
So this scope of work authorizes the independent investigator to pursue all avenues of inquiry to evaluate the investigation that was done.
Okay.
And gather information from all sources. So it's a pretty broad scope of work that looks at all. If you look through it, they will pursue all avenues to review exactly what happened and give us a report on assessing. It's all right here. So it's very comprehensive and thorough investigation, a review of the investigation, including inquiries to all the parties you just named.
Okay, and so could I see that or have a copy of what you're talking about?
It is in the packet.
It is in what
It's right up
packet?
there.
It's in the select board agenda packet that's online and has been online since last week. The
I
scope of
didn't get
services
that,
is right here.
and I looked it up.
So it's there online with our agenda packet, along with, and it's not with the agenda, it's in the packet, which is available online.
Okay,
Page-
okay.
Page 211.
And if I don't find it, I'll come find you
Yep.
and ask you to print it out for me, okay? Is that fair?
I'll just print it.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'll
We can
print the
take care of that
article.
for you, Gail. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just say, you had asked what article we're going by? We're going by the official vote that's on record in the
Okay,
town
the one
clerk's
that they
office.
voted on.
And
Yes.
so I can print this out for you too.
Yeah.
Okay, you want me, I can pick it up.
That's fine.
That's
I'll
great.
have it ready for you.
Okay.
Okay, I think I'm okay.
Good.
Thank you.
I'm glad we could clear that up for you, Gail. Thank you. So I think we're looking for consensus from the board to follow this outline and authorize procurement to
want
go
a
ahead and
motion?
hire a consultant.
Do you want a motion? or
Sure, let's
just
make a motion.
Motion to hire a firm based on that scope of work.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous, 5-0. And I'm sorry we made you wait so long today, Gail.
That's okay, I forgive you. And I wanted to say thank you. My father was on the Board of Selectmen, my brothers were, we were all involved, they were involved, and I know the hard work and long hours you put in.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Okay. Any committee reports?
Well, just a quick, before we leave this, who's going to make the selection? Will it be a committee that'll make the selection of the person? Will we make it from?
It'll be
town?
done through procurement.
Okay, they'll make it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It will follow standard procurement. Yep. Okay. Any committee reports? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is always unanimous.